Good evening, and welcome to a meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach held Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. One moment. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Here.
Vice President Fiamora.
Here.
President Finn.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Dan Creighton and Assistant Corporation Counsel Stephen Pambianchi. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Please place your hands over your hearts. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City Manager's report, Dan Creighton.
Thank you, Brennan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I first want to thank everyone in our community and our religious leaders who came out for two separate October 7th remembrances. It's important for communities such as our own to come together and stand up against hatred. I am proud that Long Beach continues to stand together as a community to support one another. Thank you very much for being there, anyone who made it. On another note, Irish Day and Fall Festival both went off without any major issues. Thousands of residents and visitors attended each event, and I think a good time was had by all. Thank you to all of the city employees whose hard work brought these events together for our community. Events like these are part of what makes Long Beach special, and I really want to thank again everybody for their efforts, CSEA, police, everybody, fire department, everybody that came out for each of those events. It was a great time. With Halloween around the corner, the city is once again hosting the Halloween house decorating map. Residents who decorate their property are invited to submit their photos to be included on our map. The map serves as a guide for families to tour all of the displays. We encourage families to make a night of it and tour the city and hopefully have dinner in one of our great restaurants. To find out more about it, please visit longbeachny.gov/Halloween. With respect to Public Works, the Walks Water Main Replacement Project is proceeding well. The main is being installed, nearly complete on Olive, and work will soon move to Walnut Street. After that, they'll go down each of the individual walks themselves and then do the connections to the houses. Later on tonight, I believe our second agenda item will be having a brief update on the critical infrastructure project, Northshore critical infrastructure project, and we will have an update on the sewer consolidation project in the future. I would also like to note that we have temporarily reopened the boat ramp at the end of National Boulevard. It will be open until roughly the end of October, maybe early November if we can pull it off. When we expect construction in the area will necessitate its closure again. This will give people a chance to get their boats out of the water for the winter season. Lastly, I'd like to commend the Long Beach Girl Scouts who are doing a gift card drive for those impacted by Hurricane Helene in rural North Carolina. Our city knows more than most how appreciated the kindness of strangers can be in times of need. The gift cards will be going to a local, on-the-ground nonprofit, which is directly helping those in need. If anyone wishes to contribute, gift cards can be dropped off at Berkshire Hathaway at 860 West Beach Street or at Maple Lanes in Rockville Center. With that said, we'll conclude my city manager's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Again, just a quick announcement again. Item 14 has been removed from the agenda. Okay, we're going to start with public hearing number 1, which is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding emergency ambulance services.
So item 1 amends the Code of Ordinances to increase the billing rate for ambulance services. We have been billing for services since 1993 and have not increased rates since 2018, despite the increased cost of gas, medical supplies, and salaries. Although we do not have specific rates for our surrounding municipalities' charges, we were able to get the ranges and high costs for the area. We specifically did not want to increase rates any higher than 75% of the higher rates for the area. If you have any further questions, Scott Kemmons is here.
We have questions from the council. We have questions from the public. Eileen.
Eileen Hessian, Long Beach. Is this on?
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was so expensive. I didn't know. I guess some of it's covered by insurance if you need an ambulance. But I'm wondering about Part B, where they crossed out, including oxygen, et cetera. Does that mean that if you get the transportation, you pay the $2,000, but you will not get the oxygen defibrillator, et cetera? You'd have to pay more for that?
No, Scott, you want to answer it? But I believe no. It's the service is still provided. It's just they cleaned it up to make it easier to bill.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, we don't hold back any treatments on patients. Majority of patients do get oxygen. They simplified the way billing is. There are 3 types of classes of calls: basic life support and 2 advanced life support. It's dependent on the treatment given the patient that is shown on the pre-hospital care report that's used by the billing company to bill. So depending on the treatment, like oxygen is part of a basic life support, but defibrillation or cardiac monitoring, narcotics or IVs, that's advanced life support. So that would all bring it to the higher level, but it's all spelled out based upon the ambulance report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Sam?
Good evening, Sam Pinto, Long Beach. A few questions on this. We're not changing our billing structure, per se, how we build residents in the past compared to how we build them currently, or going forward?
No.
All right, good to know. I'm also happy to see that we amended and cleaned up the resolution. If there's any need for clarification, the new billing schedule actually matches the Medicare billing schedule. They detail and outline ALS 1 versus ALS 2 and BLS as well. I don't know if that needs to be enumerated somewhere because there is no definition of ALS 1 versus ALS 2. But if it is need to be sent into policy, they are now commensurate with what goes on in the Medicare billing process. Just for point of clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Can I ask a question, Finn?
Yeah, sure.
That is a good point. I mean, right now, once you take out the language, there's no difference between ALS 1 and ALS 2.
There is on the billing side, like Sam had said, it is already spelled out in the Medicare, Medicaid rules that we are required by federal law to follow.
But not in the resolution.
Not in the resolution, no.
And you don't feel it needs to be?
Yeah, we've researched it. Just a little history, like the city manager said, we started billing in 1993 when we took over the ambulance service from Long Beach Hospital when they put their ambulance out of service. We've been billing since. As a municipality, we could do that, but fire districts like Point Lookout, Lido, or Oceanside, they could not bill up until last year. So last year, New York State changed the law, and all fire districts within New York State can now bill for ambulance transportation. So the law's gotten cleaned up, and like Sam said, there are 3 separate billing categories, and
Right.
depending on the treatment you give, you either go into one of those 3 categories. Other than us having what we're charging for each of those categories, it does not need to be spelled out in our Code of Ordinances.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Any other questions? We'll close that then.
Okay, on to the regular calendar. Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding emergency ambulance services. A hearing has been held on this item already. We're going to go out of order and call item number 11, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the agreement for design and engineering services for the Northshore Critical Infrastructure Protection Project. 11, yes.
So this item, as mentioned, is to amend the design and engineering services for the North Shore Critical Infrastructure Project. The reason I wanted to move it forward is we have 2 representatives from D&B Engineers, as well as our representatives from DPW, the Department of Public Works, to give a brief update on the project as it stands. Russell, do you want to take over?
Yes,
So we have D&B engineers and architects, and they're going to give a brief overview of the current status of the project.
Okay, good. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Schaefer with D&B Engineers and Architects. So I'm going to give you an update on the project. For those of you who are not familiar with the project, I will also try to give a brief overview of it. Go ahead, we can, yep. So I'm not going to go through all this, but essentially the key point here is this project is fully funded by FEMA. The city has over $39 million that it is receiving directly from FEMA to fund the project. So that is a key point that we want to remind everybody. Next slide. I don't have to explain to everybody here what happened on Superstorm Sandy. The key objective of this project is the area along Reynolds Channel where all the city has its critical infrastructure is one of the only spots along Reynolds Channel where the shoreline is not protected. And as part of this project, we want to protect that shoreline. There is a major stormwater outfall at the end of Riverside Boulevard that drains the entire watershed all the way south to Broadway and between Edwards and Long Beach Boulevard. So it's a very large watershed. During high tides or large storm events, that outfall does not drain. It backs up within the system, so we want to address that as part of the project. And then lastly, all along Water Street, you have the city's utilities, water, sewer. National Grid has their gas mains. PSE&G has their electrical conduits that all run within that corridor. That Water Street is deteriorating. As part of this project, we're replacing all those utilities and we're going to reconstruct Water Street. Next slide. The limits of the project, we're starting on the west end side all the way by the boat ramp, going all the way east to Monroe. So it's a very large stretch of shoreline. Next slide. Again, you have the wastewater treatment plant, you have the water treatment plant, PSE&G, National Grid are back there. The North Park community is not far away from this area. There's major crossings going all across the channel here. We'll get into it further, but National Grid has two 26-inch diameter gas mains that cross the channel here that supply 60 to 70% of the mainland's gas. So we're dealing with very, very critical items here that need to be protected. Next slide. This is just highlighting some of the key components. Again, not going to run through everything here. We've already presented on some of this, but for those who aren't familiar, we have at the boat ramp a deployable flood log system going in. At the railroad track, we have another deployable flood barrier system getting installed. Bulkheading all across the shoreline from the boat ramp to Monroe. At Riverside, to address that flooding, we have a below-grade stormwater pump station getting installed. Along with that is a new stormwater treatment unit that's going to be installed to treat the stormwater before it goes out to the channel. That pump station is going to be also be installed with the elevated standby generator in the event of power loss, so that it still functions. That's it. That's the major components. Next slide. Okay. All said and done, it's 2,900 feet of shoreline. The pump station itself is rated to handle 33 million gallons per day. So we're talking a lot of flow. Again, all the utilities, both the city-owned utilities in Water Street, so that's sewer and water. And then in conjunction with the project, National Grid is going to replace their gas mains in the area, and PSE&G is replacing their electrical conduits in the area. And then, so there's a lot of work all going on at the same time. Next slide. All right, so we're going to get into some of the progress photos and some of the status of where we're at now. This is just a reminder of what the shoreline looked like before the project began. You have looking west towards the railroad bridge and then looking east towards Long Beach Boulevard Bridge. The sheeting itself, we have over 2,000 linear feet of sheeting done. That's about 85% of the sheeting. So about 85% of the sheeting as of now is already installed. Next slide. I'll try to go through some of these photos fast. This is just a little figure showing the areas that are already done. The green arrows show the areas of the shoreline where the bulkheading is already done. The red arrows show the remaining spots to be done, and I'll get into the details as to those areas in a few more slides. This is showing the area on the east side of the project by the dog park. That green sheeting is the new bulkhead. We are meeting the existing bulkhead at that site. You can go to the next slide. And that existing bulkhead has been, part of this project, received a new concrete cap. This is just a photo showing that. So that work is done. You can go to the next slide. This is the area in front of the wastewater treatment plant that's done. You can keep on going. This is the area in front of the railroad property. So you see the bulkheading as of right now is we stopped up to each point that the railroad has allowed us to install the sheeting to. We can go to the next slide. This is the area in front of the water plant. Go to the next slide. This is along Water Street. You can go to the next slide. Again, this is in front of National Grid and PSE&G. So here the grade's higher, so you don't see as much of the bulkhead, but it is installed to the same height. You can go to the next slide. This is areas that still needs to be done. This is near Long Beach Boulevard. This is where National Grid has their gas mains that cross Reynolds Channel. You can go to the next slide. And this is work that's ongoing now. This is two photos at Monroe. Photo on the left showing before the debris was cleared. Photo on the right showing them starting to install the sheeting there. We'll go to the next slide. The city's water main pipes that I mentioned earlier, we have over 1,000 feet of pipe installed. That's about 60% done. The tie-in to the plant is also complete. That's a photo of that on the right-hand side. This is where the water mains cross the railroad. In order not to disrupt the railroad, the water mains were horizontally directionally drilled beneath the tracks. This is two photos showing that. That work is completely done also. The city's sanitary improvements, over 700 feet of pipe has been installed. That's about 90% done. Go to the next slide. The stormwater improvements that are being done, we have over 500 feet of that pipe done. That's about 70% finished. Go to the next slide. This is the stormwater treatment unit that I mentioned earlier. This is a photo of that getting installed, but that work is also done. This is a few sequence photos of the stormwater pump station. Photo on the left shows the supportive excavation when they were digging and supporting the excavation for the pump station. Photo in the middle is the pump station after it was formed and cast in place. And the photo on the right is the pump station after it was backfilled. So majority of the work remaining with the pump station is all the internal components, the mechanical and electrical components. You can go to the next slide. So this is just another little map showing the areas of utility work that have been completed along the shoreline. So we have the water main work. You can see a wide swath of that is done. And then the orange showing the stormwater piping that's been done, green showing the sanitary. So the utility work is also moving along well. The remaining work to be done, the bulkhead crossing at the railroad, the National Grid crossing, the sheeting by the Long Beach Boulevard Bridge, and a small crossing where PSE&G has fiber optic cables. The stormwater pump station needs to be finished along with the generator that's going to be installed with it. The remaining water and sewer work, and then the final restoration of Water Street itself. Those are the major components left. Some of the key aspects that have held up the project to date, there's three main ones that we'll highlight, but one of the big ones being the crossing at the Long Island Railroad. The Long Island Railroad has an agreement with the city to do this work, but they are still in the process of accepting the final design. The city, along with us and the contractor, have had weekly calls with all of the utilities, including the railroad, every week since this project has started. The horizontal directional drilling work on their property has already been done, as I mentioned earlier, but the final design of the flood barrier on their facility is still undergoing final review. We are very close to the finish line with them. In order to even construct the work, they require a six-month notice to schedule the work. So that work is actually already scheduled. It's tentatively scheduled for the first quarter of 2025 to actually construct the work. So the goal is to hit that date. Like I said, we're right at the finish line with them. We've had verbal on our weekly calls where they're on board with the plan. They're just waiting the final paperwork approval. But for no lack of effort on the city's part, on the contractor's part, on our part, on the whole team, it's been a very difficult process trying to get them to accept and allow this work to move forward. Go to the next slide. Another key item of work that's caused delays is dealing with National Grid. As I mentioned earlier, those two 26-inch diameter gas mains supply 60 to 70% of the mainland's gas, so they are very, very sensitive to any work going on in this area. This is a photo of where those two 26-inch gas mains are. That steel sheeting you see is the area going around the gas mains. You can see that it's in very, very poor shape. Based on the depth of these utilities, the fact that they're installed deep to go underneath the channel, they're installed within the waterway, part of the holdup has been, National Grid has had a very hard time even confirming the location of them. And in order for them to allow any work around the facilities, they have to know exactly where they are so that we can design around it, work around it, make sure we don't hit them. So even just the process of them locating these has been an extensive process on their end. But we did finally this month receive their approval to move forward with the work. So the contractor is actually in the process of finalizing their work plan and submittals to go ahead and schedule to begin this work. So this is another item that has been a major holdup, but is finally about to proceed. Next slide. So one of the other key areas remaining is the area underneath the Long Beach Boulevard Bridge. Because of the restricted clearance here, you can't use traditional equipment to install the sheeting. When this project was originally scheduled to commence, there was a specialty equipment that was available that could install the sheeting with this limited clearance. Unfortunately, that was not available when the time the project actually went out for construction. So at this point, a new plan has been made. The contractor is preparing also to move forward with this plan. So this also was a holdup for quite some time, but we are at a point where this is also ready to move forward. So a lot of the holdups were finally getting to the point where the work can proceed. Next slide. This is just a brief summary of some of the remaining items when we anticipate them to be completed. As I mentioned earlier, the bulkhead is about 85% done. We anticipate that the remaining bulkhead work to be done by the summer, and that includes the crossings that I just discussed. The utility installation work, that's about 60% done. We anticipate that being done by the spring. And that would we also anticipate the stormwater pump station work being done by the spring. All said and done, we're projecting the road work reconstruction at Water Street, final restoration to be done by the fall of 25, so approximately a year away. And I think we're here for any questions that anybody might have.
Stone, council?
Yeah, like to ask, all right? Making sure it works. A couple of things. When under the stormwater improvements, you have a hydrodynamic separator installation. What is that?
That's the stormwater treatment unit. So that
What is it? I
so
mean,
it's going to collect any floatables that are going through the system and make sure they don't end up in the channel.
And then how does that? Then you have to clean the floatables out.
It's going to require maintenance. Yes. So yes, that will be part of the city's requirements.
Okay. Now the height of the bulkhead. You're saying where it meets at I guess the rec center in Monroe, it's the same height,
Yes.
and that's all the way across the whole northern part of Long Beach.
Yep.
Now, when you come to the canals, you have different heights at the entrance of the canal, and then as you go down the canals, there's a higher height. Is this the height of the higher height or the height of the other?
This is at elevation 10 with the cap. I'm not familiar with the elevation of some of the canals, so I can't really.
Well, the new ones, the new bulkheading that was put in was higher than.
I can answer that. That's both bulkheads were all designed to elevation 9 as per the new city code.
And elevation 9 means exactly what? 9 over high tide, 9 over low tide, or what? Mean tide?
From elevation 0.
And elevation 0 is figured at mean tide?
Give or take, roughly, yeah.
Okay. And you say the ones in the canals are 9 feet too?
Elevation 9 is the top of the bulkheads, correct.
But the ones at the end of the bulkheads are.
So those were built at a different time before the code was changed to elevation 9. So off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they're around elevation 7, 6.
Okay. All right. Now, the reason it's on the agenda tonight is because of the cost overruns. There were 2 major cost overruns, am I getting that correct? There was one in the beginning and then there's this one now?
So there's actually multiple design changes that have occurred to the project, and most of them are all related to the various utility companies, as Tom had mentioned, the railroad, National Grid, PSE&G, and Verizon.
So originally, what was the price supposed to be, 35 or 37 million?
So the construction cost is still $39 million. D&B was retained on a separate contract.
And the cost overruns that go to D&B?
So the resolution tonight is to extend D&B's design services through the end of the project.
And that's the $884,000.
Correct.
And that has to do with the utilities not marking their areas properly. So we're hoping to get that in. I think you're hoping to get that back from the utilities?
Yeah, we are fully expecting to do whatever legal aspects or whatever legal actions we can take against each of the utilities to recover some of the costs that we've incurred due to their failure to approve designs that were previously approved by them.
And the prior one, where it was because the inability to obtain the permits, how much was that? Do you remember?
That for D&B's design cost change?
Yeah.
That was, hang on 1 second, sorry.
It was amended in November 2016. A complete redesign due to inability to obtain permits. Do you remember how much that was?
This was the resolution.
I think it was roughly around 500,000. I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but I think it was roughly 500,000 was the redesign cost.
And
The
Jan-
services for tonight deal mainly with construction management
Yeah.
costs, having an inspector out there full time.
Yeah, this is extended inspection services and redesign basically.
So
doing
the
some of this.
$500,000, did we ever recover any of that, or?
I
we
don't know,
still
it was
trying?
prior to when I got here, but I don't know if that was, I believe the ability to get the permits was really just delayed time, right? That, I don't believe that we would have gotten that back. I don't think it was tied to the utilities, was it, Russell?
No, that was, so the original, the city's original intent was to install the bulkhead within the waterway. And so that's how the design proceeded. And then ultimately, that was not allowed by the Army Corps. So everything had to come back.
So was it redesigned to put it out of the waterway and into the land side?
Okay, I understand that, but just out of curiosity, isn't that something that normally would be checked with, Army Corps before you design it?
Yeah, I mean, this is before my time also, back in 2015, 2016, so I'm not...
Before my time.
Yeah. I'm not 100% familiar, but I believe that was the direction that the way the project was to proceed. I'd have to get the details on it and follow up with you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one. Roy asked most of mine. This almost $900,000, where's it coming from until we figure out if we're getting any of it back legally?
Hold on a second. So we have the money in the flood protection infrastructure line item. I believe it's account H10215.
Right, it's in a capital account, but
Yeah.
are we
I believe, you
going
wanna
to
come up?
have to borrow additional monies to cover this?
I believe so. I'll let Ian answer.
Good evening, Ina Raznik, City Controller. It doesn't look right now that we'll have to borrow additional money. The cost of the project is about $39 million. We borrowed 15, but we've got reimbursed already about $9 million. So we have enough working capital there to get us through the end of the contract, because it's really, we have an ordinance authorized to borrow up to $39 million. So it's really a combination of the grant money and the borrowed money.
Normally we figure in, for lack of a better term, a fudge factor. I think it's 15% whenever we put something out.
Contingency.
Is it a
Contingency.
Is it a
Yep.
contingency?
Yes, I don't know what the percentage was for this project.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him.
He doesn't have it.
Okay, all right.
Mike?
Thanks, Ina. Tom, on one of the slides, and I was just looking for it, right after you said something about the Long Island Railroad, underneath it, it said outage first quarter 2025. Is that Long Island Railroad outage?
Correct. Yes, they have to schedule a shutdown of service for this work to be constructed on overnight hours. During that shutdown, they have to arrange for a bus service. So they
Yes,
require,
these are my next
yeah,
questions,
so,
because
yeah.
we're going to need
Yes,
big
all
time
that
advance
information,
notice
yep.
and get the word out to everybody, because as you know,
Yep.
most people on this island use.
Yeah,
Long
as soon as we get it in our, from the railroad, we will definitely be sharing, city's a part of that, those conversations, so that will be moved up the chain.
Right, and if we can have any, maybe somebody knows somebody at the Long Island Railroad, but we need to make sure it's not happening during rush hour.
Yes, they wouldn't allow it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Would,
Yeah, it's going to be over the weekend and overnight.
Evenings, yep.
I have a question on that. So the time frame is spring of 2025 for that?
No, yes.
And we talking
The first
early spring
quarter,
of 2025?
The first quarter of 2025.
Isn't it
so sometime
February,
in-
right? Is the current GO that they scheduled, I believe?
What was
The
that?
current Long Island Railroad GO is February, I believe, right? Their general outage where they're going to shut down some of the service? I thought
Yes,
it was February.
yes.
That's good.
I have two questions. How long do they anticipate the shutdown of the Long Island Railroad? And will it go past Memorial Day?
For just one weekend.
One weekend?
That's it. The work has to be done in one weekend.
Okay. And second question is, I know we talked about going after the utility for reimbursement for what we have to lay out. Have you been involved in projects that have similar problems? And what are the likelihood of the utilities, without getting into a lawsuit, covering the expense?
I mean, it's going to be a battle, but we're documenting. I mean, that's part of the reasons you have us there every day. We're documenting these. Like I mentioned, we have weekly calls with them. We have instances showing where they can't locate their own equipment. Months at a time, it takes them to go out and check again. Still can't find it. I mean, so this is the support that we're going to have to provide to you. And I'm not saying it's not going to be a battle, but, you know.
If I could add to that as well, we also have situations on this project where they approved the design, and when we started to get ready to build it, they suddenly disapproved the design.
Yes.
So they made us go into a redesign, which I think we should be able to recover that money if they forced us to redesign after we already had approved.
I think we have no choice but to go after them for the money, whether it's through proper discussions or a lawsuit.
Yep.
We're definitely going after it.
But one way or another, we're going after it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think all five of us could agree on that.
Just one other question. Given all the difficulties with nobody's knowing where their utilities are and things like that, as they're being identified, is the city now keeping as-built drawings of where their utilities are, so we know at least?
Yes, as part of the project, the contractor is responsible for surveying and recording all the found utilities, and then when the utilities are installed, they're required to give us as-built at the end of the project, marking where everything is.
Okay,
So
so
we'll have very
we should
detailed
know where
records of the area.
everything is then when this is over.
Everything that was
Correct.
encountered during construction.
Right,
Well,
within-
that's what I mean.
Correct.
You know.
So in other words, what John's saying is we'll have our own set of survey, we'll have our own survey for the city for what they found.
Yes, correct.
Okay, good.
For the construction area. Right.
I'm sorry, last question. Does the utilities that didn't, are not properly, I don't want to know how to say it, are not expertly marked or something like that, does that include the gas line? Or is the gas line something that we absolutely know where it is?
So all the utilities have been located. There's, I believe, PSE&G is still locating a few of their utilities on the railroad property, but for the most part, all their services have been identified through the means of their own exploration.
No, I meant in the beginning. When we didn't know where certain utilities were, was that just electric, or did that include the gas line too?
That was every single crossing. So the gas mains,
Wow.
the electrical, the FiOS, the
Really old.
Verizon.
It's really old, though.
Yeah, but still, a gas line like that, not knowing where it is?
They had a general idea, but the depth they had to confirm, and that was the hard part. 'Cause some of these utilities are 20, 30 feet deep. So.
Thank you.
One last question.
Yeah.
One last question, and I don't know if we went over it, I missed it, but when is the dog park? When is that completion set for? Is that spring, fall?
So the dog park should be opened once. Well, so the dog park will have to remain closed once this project is complete because it also needs to be shut down for the consolidation project. But we do have the temporary dog park that's next to the animal shelter.
Yeah.
The work for this project is basically done.
Say that again?
Okay.
So the work for this project that requires the dog park to be shut down is essentially complete, but because the consolidation project is right next door, the dog park needs to remain closed for that project as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the public? Comments? Eileen?
Eileen Hessian, Long Beach. I think most of my questions were answered, but I have a few others. Was this project part of Mr. Fabrizio's domain?
Yes.
Was he in charge of it? So has he been replaced, or is someone taking over the management of that he was doing?
Russell has been the city engineer for a while. He reported to Joe Fabrizio, but he's been in charge of this project throughout as well. So he's definitely skilled enough to
You?
take over this
Mr.
project.
Mann?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know you worked for Long Beach.
Yes, I'm the city engineer. I'm Russell
Oh,
Darris.
I'm sorry. I thought he worked for the other company. And then in the beginning, you said that FEMA was paying for everything, but we have that $884,000 thing, which it is so outrageous to me that the companies don't know where their own material is, and I don't care how old they are, they should have known where the gas pipes were. So I certainly do hope that you sue them for more than $884,000 because apparently they're putting us all at risk. And they also are making this project, wasn't it supposed to be finished now, this month?
Correct. The
So it's
original
almost a
completion
year
was
late that it will be finished, and
this
it's
month.
their fault. And will we be doing that legal work in-house, or will we be hiring outside counsel?
Probably a mix of both. We do have some contract managing lawyers in-house that can work on it, but we'd probably use outside counsel if we need to as well.
Okay, and finally, there was an extra $500,000 that was mentioned. Does that add on to the $800,000?
What do you mean?
Didn't
with-
somebody mention $500,000 up here?
Yes, that was for the redesign because initially they thought that they could do the bulkheading on the land or on the water?
in the water. In the water.
In the waterway.
In the water. And they found out they couldn't do it that way. The Army Corps of Engineers came in and said, you
Shouldn't
can't.
someone have known that before they started?
That was my point.
So it's 884 plus 500. That's
the
a lot of
design.
money.
The 500 was already, that was from 2016.
Did FEMA pay it?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also, just as a comment, I always enjoyed Mr. Fabrizio. He always seemed to know everything that was going on. I think that's a big loss for the city.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Crystal? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
You can pull it up, actually.
Good evening, gentlemen. I
Good
hope
evening.
everyone is well.
She's not speaking right now.
I thank everyone for all of their time and assistance regarding this project. But I would definitely like to clarify one thing which has occurred over a decade ago, approximately 15 years ago. This began, I grew up in North Park. I walked through the water all through up until high school. A gentleman by the name of Chip was the bus driver. He would drive down, well, at that time I resided on Riverside, so we would not have to walk through such deep waters. In 2015, Judith Enoch, she was then the United States EPA Regional Administrator, and a letter was sent to the United States Army Corps of Engineers that stated the principal purpose of this particular project was to protect the North Park community, human life. And back in December 31st, 2010, North Park, Long Beach, New York, we were one of the 3 New York State adaptation champions, New York State Sea Level Rise Task Force. Okay, so the complexity of that area, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor, I'm not an architect, anything of that nature, but I am well aware of the complexity of what's there. I have provided the information to each and every administration based on historical documentation to what was there. 591021, Transco. Long Beach Gas. On the opposite side, 5979103, Queensboro Gas and Electric. So, the magnitude of what's there, everyone within the city of Long Beach, I'm about to be in tears because this was such a daunting task, from the Long Island Railroad to this individual, to this entity, New York Community Reconstruction Program, boards, commissions, yada, yada, yada. All life is precious. And the uphill battles and the struggles that occurred just to get this project, the funding for this project, I bugged then former Governor Cuomo's office. He initially came down to North Park when the first allotted funding was available, $12.5 million. Please allow me a little
Could you wrap it, though?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Based on the redesign, what guarantee that there will not be another redesign? I've also read that there in documents that there is a potential for a redesign of the elevation of some of the utilities or the relocation of some of the utilities. So there's so much that can occur. There's a lot that should occur. And I know each and every one of all of you gentlemen and everyone else who plays a part of this can get this project done in a timely manner. However, based on what's there, we should be very critical. Subsea pipeline from the ocean down Long Beach Road. This is something that we all should be working in collaboration. And I'm asking each and every one of you to protect us because we are not, riprap is meaningless. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thanks. You got a question?
Russell Blank, Long Beach, New York. I have a question for you gentlemen. This is a huge project. Do you think without any delays it would be completed before the hurricane season?
For next hurricane season?
Yes, which would, I guess, start in May probably?
So it's projected for the bulkhead to be installed and
The
completed
entire
by
job.
then. So the project is projected to be completed next winter. in
Okay, so
2025.
this could go, okay, so if there was some type of storm that we had, there could be damage, could set you back quite a while then, right? Unfortunately.
Potentially, correct.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was, because this is a huge job, obviously. So I'm just wondering about that fact, because things aren't getting better with these storms, you know? So,
Correct.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for the 24-25 fiscal year.
1 second. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so item 2 is do you have to read it, or you good? Oh, you just read it? Okay. This item is to move funds within the Bus Transportation Department in order to cover costs associated with updating the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation State Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or SPEEDIES permit for stormwater discharge. This is a new requirement through the MS4 program. Russell is still here if you have any further questions.
Question from the council.
Russell, what does this permit actually allow the garage to do?
So this permit allows the garage to continue to discharge stormwater into the city stormwater system. So essentially, originally the city garage was covered under the MS4 stormwater discharge permit, but there's a sweeping changes to the permit this past year, and the new permit does not cover the facility because it's a services public transportation. So in order to get the garage into compliance, they need this new general permit.
Any other questions on the council?
Yeah, I
just want to comment on that. And I know I asked this question of Dan already. You know, I look at this and I see, well, did we overestimate the vehicle repairs? But then, you know, I found out that this is a new requirement. So I guess the question is, Dan, we can handle that 15,000?
Yeah, it looks like we're trending under budget in that item, so it looks like we'll have
Under
enough funds to
budget, I love that.
That's what he does.
Doing our best.
Love that word. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from the public? Eileen?
Eileen Hessian, Long Beach. This is just sort of a general question, and it's about transfer of funds. Number 3 is also transfer of funds, and it seems like every council meeting we have that happen. So, like on this one, the vehicle repairs is being transferred to contracted services. What happens if we need vehicle repairs and their money has been taken away?
Then we'll have to either move it from another line item where we're under or add money from contingency. But right now, we're trending under on this one, so we feel we have the money available for it.
Okay. So in a way, it was put there even though it wasn't needed as sort of a cushion or something?
We could add more money into contingency line items, but that would increase our budget, obviously, and end up with a bigger tax increase.
Okay. The same thing for the next one, which you'd have to move training expenses to salary, and they need training expenses. So I don't know. I don't understand how this works. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I guess,
so
maybe it
it
addresses what you're talking.
I think
mumbling about.
what one of the council members just asking, if you could explain how transfer of money between line items move so that
Just
we're
for
not
clarification for Eileen, and just so you understand, because I see how you see it from a public standpoint, when you're moving money, it's just a function of accounting to stay within budget, and I think maybe
Yes.
Yeah, you could probably explain it better.
Yes, so this year we took a very conservative approach to the budget, and that's why you probably see more transfers than you've seen in the past. We are being proactive. There is enough money there in the account. If you were to look at the account, there is enough money to charge that expense. But there is enough money in all the accounts, and we're only 3 months in. So between the city manager and myself, we project through the year end. And for those expenses that are new, we are looking at how to fund them within the budget. So vehicle repairs, it's an estimate, right? And there is a certain discretion to that line item as to which vehicles are going to get repaired when and to what extent. Same thing with training. However, for this particular item, this is a necessity for the city. It had to be funded. We're not taking any chances. We're saying we want to make sure that these line items are properly funded. We transfer money from one account to another within the same department to stay on a budget for the year in total.
Eileen, is that better? You better understand it that way?
Yes, I always thought about paying Peter to play ball, but the money was equal, so I never worried about it.
Yeah, it's just a responsible way of accounting. Instead of just keeping a bunch of money in one thing and spending it, they move it as needed. But I understand your viewpoint, so I wanted to clarify it for you.
And just one thing, Russell, I don't know if you're going to notice, but if we knew we needed to do this, we required this permit, why was it put in the annual budget?
So these regulations came out recently, and D&B is also in charge. We hired D&B to take care of the MS4 permit. They came in and gave us a presentation on it in June, and that's when we found out that we needed to apply for this additional permit. So that's when we started getting the wheels in motion.
The budget was done.
So that's after the budget was done.
So it was after the budget.
Great.
Thank you, Russell. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Ina.
Thanks,
Close that.
everybody.
Thank you, Ina. All right, we'll close that.
Item 3 is also a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for the 24-25 budget, fiscal year.
So this item is to move funds within the fire department to cover an additional part-time employee. As you're aware, the fire department does not have any clerical staff. We did expect some of the officers to be able to do more work than they're currently able to do because they're out on calls with still understaffed at this point in time. Much of the paperwork has fallen behind, and we thought it was prudent to have a part-timer come help and catch up to date. Commissioner Miller is out for surgery, as you know, but Scott Kemmons is here if you have any further questions.
Question from the council.
Me?
Scott, just a quick question. When you say part-time, how much?
I believe, I worked with Joe on this, I believe it's less than 8 hours a week. I believe that's what we worked out with Joe, and I think with what the budget would hold for this.
8 hours a week?
I believe it's 8 hours a week. It's really to catch up on paperwork, and it's, you know, it's necessary to get done.
So that's 25,000.
It's a lot of money for 8 hours.
John?
So if this is to catch up on paperwork, is there a time limit on how long this person's needed, or is this is expected to be a permanent part-time addition?
I expect it to be temporary. I'll work with Joe. If we have, as we staff up, I think the need for this position becomes less and less as well. Because I think some of this work would be something that we would want some of the officers to catch up on, but I don't think they have the ability or the time to do it right now.
Who's doing it up to this point?
It's been being done by the officers when they have spare time, but I don't think right now they haven't been. We've been running with 5 firemen for quite a while, and it's really not something that's that they're able to do is on top of everything else.
So
that
this
they're
has
doing.
been done by the paid officers then?
Mhm.
Okay. So is this person that we expect to hire, are we going to be hiring someone internally, like from the volunteer department, or is this going to be posted, or?
We would probably hire a part-time person to do it that has familiarity with the fire department. So the likelihood is it will be one of the chiefs or one of the past chiefs, someone that understands what paperwork needs to be done. Scott, you could probably answer that better than I can.
Well, I wasn't involved in the planning of it, but there has typically, over the years, not been a clerical person for the fire department. Years ago, there was. The paperwork has gotten a lot more involved, whether it be the health department recertification, purchase orders. So it's become a lot. I used to do a lot of it. The paid lieutenants, when they have time, can help out. The commanding officer or the executive officer, when they used to work Monday through Friday, was able to accomplish some of it. You know, presently we don't have that to be able to use that. The commanding officer, executive officer is on a tour, so he works 24 on, 72 off, and responding on calls while he's working. So I think Commissioner Miller's goal is just to have somebody help with the paperwork, like the city manager said, at least temporarily to get us through until the manpower is better and hopefully the system works better.
This is something the dispatchers couldn't take up while they're sitting?
I don't believe so. They dispatch for 4 departments, and they don't have a lot of free time either.
Okay.
Any other questions on the council? Questions from the public, comments? I was hoping you'd come up here.
Good evening, Sam Pinto, Long Beach Professional Firefighters. I have a few questions. I asked that my time be paused so they can be answered, because it'd be easier to be answered at the same time as being asked or around the same time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm asking if my time could be paused during the time if there's any answers to the questions. Okay, just reiterating that. So question I know was touched on before, but what kind of work will this person be performing?
I'm not aware of all the paperwork that's required for the fire department, but, and I know Joe's out. I would try to have Scott answer it if he can, but I don't want to put him on the spot either. But I know there's a lot of paperwork that's necessary to be filed by the fire department that hasn't been filed. So it's really to catch up on everything. And I take his word for it on that.
Okay. Then what kind of hiring process has been created for this position?
We would likely put out something, I don't know, the typical process that we do for any part-time employee.
Only because I looked on the city's website, nowhere is the job opening posted, nowhere on the city's job specifications is this type of job listed, nowhere on the transfer.
We have no position yet approved.
Understood. But I'm saying as for now, there's no job specification listed on the city civil service website as well. There's no job seekers list of all the job seekers out there. There's no opening for it as well. Just want to make the point of that. I don't believe this position is essential. I honestly have great concerns about it. It sounds to me like the position for the work is minimal, 8 hours a week. That could be handled by the officers on duty who have been doing this type of work. Speaking for the membership, we can do this work. We've done this work. We haven't been overly tasked with doing type of clerical work, and we're well trained and qualified and able to do it. You know, my concerns that this is going to be a position for a person, and you know, it's going to lead to possible nepotism as well, giving a position to a friend or a person of the department.
Excuse me. I don't think you should cast that kind of aspersions on us.
I'm just concerned. I'm not saying it. No, I'm not saying it.
It sounds like you are, though.
I take it back. It's not a judgment on you. But I'm just concerned for those types of things. Primarily for the other aspects of it that has already been pretty much announced by the city that the type of work has been done already by members of the union. So the members of the union can continue to do that work. One thing I would like to point out that this type of work can be handled by membership at no additional cost. It can be done on duty. If it's only 8 hours a week, we have 4 officers there right now that can handle the workload. I think it's not the best use of city resources and funds. I think transferring $25,000 out of the training expense budget for this position is a wrong move, especially after the fact that members applied for paramedic training this year, where this money from the training budget could have been utilized, and now it is now being shifted away after they were given their lack of approval to attend a course. That type of work, the paramedic work, is the core duties of the fire department. It actually is the work that motivates the work that you're trying to do clerical work on. So I'm asking if the city council, seeing that this position has never been created before, it's not on this year's budget, they can either vote down or table this for another time to see if it's actually a necessary purchase. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, Sam,
May I
before-
ask go ahead, John.
before you walk away. So I heard 2 very different stories just now. We were told that we need to do this because the officers are too busy to do this. And now I got an officer standing here telling me they're not too busy to do it.
Yeah, and I was actually going to mention that, but I don't want to debate here, but I believe the paperwork is not being done right now.
I think if we were tasked with it, the officers would be able to complete the task in the manner needed. Sure.
Well, hold on one second. I got a question. So this paperwork has probably been going on for a long period of time, unless it's brand new. So the duties of the officers or the firefighters has probably been the same all along. So when did the paperwork stop being done?
I don't know even what paperwork we're completely referencing to.
Excuse me?
I'm not sure exactly what paperwork we're referencing to that is not getting done. I know that I complete all the paperwork that's requested of me.
By whom?
By the captain or the commissioner.
Okay.
That work could be done. I don't know. I think if we maybe try to streamline some of the processes, maybe that'll even make a little bit of alleviation of the workload. I don't know what the work is that needs to be done. But
I can sit with you and discuss it with you and the commissioner, but as I'm aware of it, it's paperwork that should be getting done now that is not getting done. And it would be typically under the offices of the
Sure. I do believe that it could definitely get done.
So we probably should talk about it, because if it could be done, it should be being done.
Yeah, and if the worst case scenario, if you need to add 2 or 3 hours a week to a person to do it, it'll be still cheaper than 28 hours a week or $25,000 additional in the budget.
All right, so if we're hearing from one of the officers they can do it, and you're saying you need to have a conversation, I'm going to make a motion to table this so you can have that conversation, and then if we need to, we can vote on this at the next meeting.
Well,
So
before you make that motion, why don't we discuss it? We can resolve to provide the funds but they don't, that job doesn't have to be provided if we discuss it with the city manager and the commissioner.
To be honest, I would feel uncomfortable voting for something like this when the president of the union tells us that the work can be done. He doesn't even know what work this is referring to, and we've been told that a conversation
If he doesn't know
will
what
be-
the work is, then how can he tell us that it can be done?
Because it's 8 hours.
But if,
Yeah,
he,
I
if he
mean-
doesn't know what the work is, then how can he say he knows it can be done?
Because he says, I have 4 officers, and they can do 2 hours a week.
But they don't know what the work is, they said.
So I think that's
But you're-
why,
we've been already told.
I think that's why maybe waiting 2 weeks to let
Yeah.
the city manager have the conversation with them to see if they can do the work or not. I don't think that's going to, the earth will spin off its axis.
Well, I think we've spent a lot of time on it right now, so I think maybe we should vote on it.
Okay, well, all right. I've made a motion to
Okay.
table.
I'll
You can
second
vote
it.
no if you'd like, but
Motion to table number 3. Councilmember Bendo.
yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
I think we should table it. Table it, yes.
Vice President Fiamara.
Table it?
That's yes?
No.
Sorry, what?
It's not, it's a no from me, it's a yes
No,
from him.
it's yes from him, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've already spent a lot of time on this, I think we should go forward with it.
Okay. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the development of a roadway safety action plan.
It has to be. We're on the next item. 4.
All right, item 4 allows us to accept a grant to develop a roadway safety action plan. This plan is required to apply for further grants to resolve issues with roadways that are prone to accidents. The local match for the grant can be through in-kind services for police and grant administration. This grant was developed in collaboration with the police department, DPW, and planning departments. The goal is to work with the city agencies, consultants, residents, and business owners to improve public safety with the overall goal of reducing traffic crashes. This will include consultation with Nassau County as well, since most of the roads where our high incidents are Nassau County roads. Patty Bourne is here if you have any further questions. And Tyler, by the way.
Question from the council?
Yes. Patty, this is required for further funds?
Yes, this is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good evening, Patty Moore. Yes, a new program that came out about 2 years ago from the federal government through DOT, Department of Transportation, provides 2 phases of funding. The first is to look at problems with traffic and crashes, and our police department has that information, and then come up working with an engineering firm, traffic engineering experts, and the community to come up with possible solutions. The second phase will be that we'll be able to apply to the same grant fund or funds to alleviate these problems, therefore reducing, hopefully, traffic crashes in coordination with Nassau County. And the information can also be used for applying for state grants and other federal grants. It would be very useful information. It may also help us to understand better our roadway system and the police department to understand certain things happening. And I think one point is important to remember, which most everyone here has lived here a long time, but we have lots of people coming, especially in the summer, who really get very confused. For example, the major traffic incident area is Long Beach Road and Park Avenue, and people get confused, pedestrians and bicyclists get confused how to cross the street. It's our worst accident area. According to the police department, it's also considered one of the primary accident areas in the entire county, according to Nassau County DPW. So this will provide us with the ammunition to go get funds to make improvements.
But the problem with that, of course, is it's Nassau County's road.
Right, and
So-
we've already talked to Nassau County, and the idea would be to go back to them when we have recommendations about doing something at that key intersection that I mentioned, Long Beach Road and Park Avenue. I've talked to them in the past which our city manager is aware of through the federal government, where the county gets funds to do improvements, and one of the things that we can say is, here's some solutions, here's a major problem area, would you please make this area, this particular site, an incentive, give it more recognition, move it up on the hierarchy of areas that need to be addressed.
So when we're talking about a roadway safety action plan, it's going to be in conjunction, the plan, even before we apply for the more money, will be to cooperate with Nassau County to bring Nassau County into that plan?
Sure, as I said, we've already talked to them and we'll talk to them again.
Okay, thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, having this safety action plan, this opens up and allows us to apply for more grants in the future, because this is one of the prerequisites of applying for certain grants.
Right, and it would also make our applications a lot stronger because we would have the documentation and the solutions that are based upon science and working with the community.
John? I guess first I would just want to start, this is the first of 5 grants we're going to be voting to accept tonight, totaling about $1.43 million. So I just want to say, I want to commend the two of you for bringing that kind of money in these 5 grants. If we had to do this through taxes, that's about a 3.5% tax increase. So thank you for one. Once we get this grant, who would actually who develops the plan?
We would do an RFP working with the
Okay, so we'd farm it out.
DPW and our city manager, and we'll get the qualified people. There are a lot of people.
Okay.
In fact, we heard about this through one of the engineering firms that we work with. There are a lot of firms that would be very interested in working with us.
Now, does any of the traffic study we did as part of the comprehensive plan fold into this?
Yeah, that was very preliminary. We actually mostly used data from the county and from the census and other sources about traffic issues. So those were generalized numbers. Here we would get very specific and do what's called traffic counts. Most people, and the important thing is to do it at different times of the year, different times of the week, different times of the day, to get an idea of where our traffic is and where it's coming and going from. Because I think some of us assume that some of the traffic that comes through Long Beach, especially on Park Avenue, isn't local traffic. It's people passing through. And how do we work with that issue too?
Okay, and then just one more quick, and this might just be a modification of paperwork. The grant agreement actually required the plan be finished this month, so obviously we're a little behind.
We're not behind.
Well, somebody's behind, whether it's them or, but I'm just saying it required the plan to actually be finished this month. So, I mean, they just roll that calendar ahead, I assume, right?
What happened is that we surmised, Tyler and I, is that this is additional funds given to DOT, US DOT. They didn't have extra staff. It took them longer. Everyone recognizes to get out the initial contract. Tyler did a great job getting back the contract very quickly, and then it kind of got lost for a while, shall we say, so that had to be reissued. So here we are now.
All right, so they'll just slide it forward. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to echo what John said. You guys did a really nice job, both of you. Thank you for the hard work you're doing on these grants. And obviously, I don't think anybody would disagree that Long Beach Road and Park Avenue is a major problem. Not a problem, but it's a major challenge that we need to address, because it's getting more and more traffic, more and more people, living in the town, more and more people coming to the town. So something we need to address. Thank you. Questions from the public?
Eileen Hessian, I guess I'm confused again about wording. The $59,000, we will have to pay that?
It will be in-kind services.
Okay, and that's my question. What does in-kind service mean?
That sounds confusing. It's very typical of grants. It means that they allow us, because they've approved it, to use our time, whether it's people from the police department, DPW, my department, other people, to put in their time as counted towards our local share. So we do not have to put out any cash.
Very good, thank you. The other thing is, Patty just answered where our highest crash areas are, and I think we all know that it's Park and Long Beach Road. So I was going to say, why do we need to pay this amount of money to somebody to tell us what we already know? And I think we kind of know some of the solutions too, but anyway,
I
this
agree
is going
with
to bring
you.
us...
For the most part, I agree with you that, we all drive there all the time and we see what we see, but
We do.
I think when you pay, I won't use the word experts, but people who are in the business, they'll probably see things that we don't.
Okay. That's what I was going to say. So now I agree with it. If we have to get, if we get more money because we did this, good. And then I appreciate that both of you, two of you, thanked Patty for getting this grant. Did Patty get the grant, or did our grant writers get the grant?
That's a very good question. We have a team, and Tyler actually took the lead on this. We had come up with a concept. We have a consultant, Millennium Associates, who we talk to almost daily. They do kind of like the vanilla box. They do the concept. We add the details to tell the story, to make it unique to Long Beach, which usually means that we get better scoring, and therefore get the award. But
Okay.
They do a lot of work.
Is that company the one that Susan Sweet works for?
I'm not familiar with that name.
Isn't that the name of a woman who is our grant writer?
Say that again?
No, Millennium
Susan
Partners
Sweet?
is our grant writers. You're talking Stacy Sweet, our public affairs
Stacy
person.
Sweet, I'm sorry, yes. So she wasn't involved in that?
She's not a grant writer.
She's not a grant writer? Oh,
No,
okay.
she does public relations.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then Denise Ford, isn't she a grant writer too?
Denise Ford was helping with grants. Denise Ford is not with us now.
Oh,
She
I just saw her
retired.
today.
She retired.
Thank you very much.
And if I could just add, I want to just point out that what you said with Tyler, Patty, Denise when she was here, Lori, there's a lot of people that are involved. We've been applying for way more grants than we ever have before. We've been successful with, I think, more than we've ever had before, and they're really doing a great job and should be commended for the job
I
that
do
they're
see
doing.
that, in all of our meetings, yes. Thank you very much. This also reminds me of a couple of meetings ago, a while ago, I think, didn't we have some kind of parking survey that was similar to this, where there was research done? Did we ever get any responses about how to help with our parking
I
situation?
believe that was 2 months ago.
Was that was the design to parking study grant? Yeah.
But we have not started yet.
Okay.
We're working on the RFP for that.
Very
That's
good.
for the downtown, to specifically look at the streets and parking meters and striping and whatever.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, close that.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the purchase and planting of trees.
So this item is another grant item for purchasing, as was mentioned, for planting of trees. These trees will be the planting in specifically the North Park area. Patty and Tyler are still here if you have any further questions.
Question from the council.
About how many trees is this going to fund? Do we know offhand?
That's a good question. I don't know how many trees exactly. There's $80,000 that's reserved within the grant budget to purchase trees, and then there's $20,000 that's reserved to reimburse in-house city staff for doing the plantings. It's in the couple hundred range,
Okay.
around that, something like that.
And
It
how-
depends how much we get for them, of course, but it's something like that.
And how is it going to be decided where they go? Is there going to be
The-
like a community input and stuff?
No, the trees will be planted in the North Park area of the city. That's the
Right.
requirement of the grant.
But within North Park?
Oh, within North Park,
Yeah,
Hal?
I mean, will the community have input to where they go, or
Um,
we already, is it,
That's a good question. We can discuss that. We haven't really gotten that far yet. The first step here is to execute this contract, and then we can figure out the details later. But generally speaking, the planning area is north of Park, with Lincoln Boulevard as the east boundary, and New York Avenue as the east boundary. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of trees, so they'll be planted over several planting seasons. So in terms of the exact locations, that's probably, we could do community input. I don't think that's my decision, but I also put it on the city staff, Tommy Canner and his guys, as to where they should be, because I think those guys know better than me, where the trees are needed.
They have priorities too, so this will allow trees to be planted faster in that area, and therefore, because it's 100% grant, allow the city budget to be used for planting in other places. So it increases the trees in the city. We also talked with Russell regarding adding some trees possibly to the new area along the bulkheading.
So the city doesn't exactly have a stellar track record with trees in the past. A lot of the trees we have planted in the past have died. What are we doing to make sure that doesn't happen again and we're not just throwing good money after bad?
I think the first thing we should do is not have another superstorm Sandy, right?
No. These were trees
No,
that
these
were
are the trees we
planted
planted
after
after.
Sandy that have died.
Right, okay.
They were planted in plastic buckets that they came in, so they were all root bound and died. I just learned that doing the construction at my house, that all the trees on West Olive were planted in the plastic buckets. They came from the nursery.
Yeah, well, look, it's a good question. I don't think I can answer. That's more a question for, the guys that do that work, so I'm sure we can get back to you. And
Then I would just suggest there needs to be a plan for maintaining the trees as well, because, like I said, we know a lot of them died that we planted after Sandy, and we've had to remove them.
Right, I think that's not in their purview, though. It's the people that we assigned to do that, right? The Department of Public Works,
No, I
anticipate.
agree. I'm just saying,
Right.
in the big scope of things,
Right.
that's one of the
That's
things we
really
need
up to us
consider.
to make sure they don't do that, as opposed to these guys go out and get the money.
Thank you.
Any more from the council? Yes.
Linda Giles, Long Beach, New York. John, you're so right. There are so many dead trees in this city. And not only, cannot blame the storm, because this did happen after the storm. I think the wrong trees were planted in Long Beach. Trees that are not for a salt environment. You had mentioned a community, what did you mention, to get the community involved? I think we need to get someone who specializes in trees and in plantings to know what are the trees that you plant in a salt environment. I have 3 trees, 2 on the side, 1 in the front, that are disgusting. Now, I can't afford to go and cut them down and put up new trees, but these were trees that I had, and these were good trees. So I really think you have to be very proactive in making sure that the trees that we put are the trees that belong here. And are we getting any guarantee on these trees if they don't take?
What did you say? We getting what?
Are we getting any warranty on the trees that we plant?
This one is for the grant to get the trees, so when we purchase the trees, we'll have to make sure we get a 1-year warranty on them, et cetera. I also believe, I don't know if Russell maybe could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that since some of the trees have died, we've done a little bit of an analysis of what type of trees will be better suited for the saltwater environment. I think that's already been done, but DPW could speak to it better, but I'm pretty sure it's already
So
been done.
those of us who have these trees that have not flourished, do we have any recourse with
I
the
would say
city?
if they're put in quite a while ago, probably not anymore, but we should look at, replacing them if they're dead, but I don't know how old your trees are, I don't know what
Well, they
condition
came
they're in.
after Sandy, whenever the trees were planted after Sandy.
Yeah, I doubt at this point we'd have any recourse now, but we will, as far as new trees, making sure that they stay alive for, like, I believe it's the first year that they're typically warranted, right?
Correct. So the city does have a tree planting plan that was put together before my time, I think maybe about 10 years ago. So we have been following that. But as far as trees that have planted and died, typically it's about a year warranty, and then after that.
It would be nice if some of these trees could replace our dead trees.
Yeah. Thank you. Christina.
Hi, Christina Kramer.
Hi.
I'm on the Environmental Advisory Committee. We have in that group at least 2 or 3 tree specialists. So perhaps we might want to reach out to them and ask them what kinds of trees. They talk about this all the time during the meeting, so I'm pretty confident they know what they're doing. Maybe you want to use the resources we have right here.
Yep, there's at least one that I'm aware of that
All right,
we'll
thanks.
talk to.
Bye.
Thank you. Yes.
Jim Kirkland, Long Beach, New York. I know for a fact that there's a numerous number of people in this town that are actually master gardeners from the Cornell Cooperative. And if they aren't willing, you could probably reach out to places like the Cornell Cooperative that will give you expert advice on the kinds of trees that can be placed here and what they need to be done when they are planted. One of you mentioned something about trees coming in a plastic 5-gallon pail. That is no way to transport a tree. The trees that were put in front of my house came in a heavy gauge wire basket.
Or burlap.
Because they had to be transported. One of the problems is when they planted them, they didn't remove the wire basket, so then it forces the tree to produce root systems that go around and through it, which daunts the survival of the tree. But there are, a lot of trees that will survive in this area, but I noticed that even new trees that have been planted in the center malls between Park and Broadway, a lot of those are already failing. And the ones that were put along Edwards Boulevard on the streets are also failing. So it's very difficult to find things that do survive, but key to that is making sure that they get watered. Most residents have no clue that they're responsible for the trees. And so many of the trees that are surviving, you've got to duck. And if I have to duck, that means the branches are pretty close to the ground. And they need to be cut back so that people can walk under them and not force people out into the street or to go up against the side hedges that line a lot of the streets. So a lot of pre-planting investigation should take place and find out what will work here and what won't work here, because I've got 2 dead ones in front of my house. But I have a lot of weed trees that are thriving. So sometimes maybe it isn't, going to the nursery and getting a nice expensive tree that's the answer. Maybe it's just finding out what Mother Nature will provide us on the hand, on the arm, and not have to spend a lot of money, and they will survive. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, he has, and then you. You guys can race to get up here.
Good evening, David Eldridge. Can everybody hear me?
You got to pick it up. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I live on Roosevelt Boulevard, East Park Avenue. On East Walnut, I'm not an aficionado on trees or an expert, but there's a beautiful group of trees that have been growing for years. They're tall, narrow, and they're green all the time. And compared to the other trees that have, there has been an attempt and made to put these other trees in, I see these other trees that have been put in, and I apologize, I don't know the name of them. I know the London plane trees that have died or been subjected to the salt water and the flooding. You can see them all over with dead branches on them. They need to be cut down because they're a danger. That could also be, you may be included in doing some work in the future. But the point is, I see these other trees that have been put in, they're in different stages of growth, and they're all ugly. And they have no benefit or aesthetic beauty and value to this community, which is really a beautiful community where you see these other trees that are very robust. They can do whatever they need to do in this environment. And I've seen them over the last 10 years flourish. And again, I apologize, I don't know the name of them, but they're on East Park Avenue, and there's at least a dozen of them, and then they go to the next block. They stand tall at over 10 feet, and they grow every year, and they don't take any work at all to be taken care of, and they don't really drop a lot of foliage. These other trees that are put in, or wherever get these grants from, or whatever's being done, they're put in, they come with the water truck, they make some kind of effort to take care of them, and then it's over. It doesn't work. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your comment. Thanks.
Good evening, San Pinto. Briefly, I have a tree on my block that was put in after Sandy. Was part of the whole collection of trees put in. I've spoken to DPW about this. I've showed it to them. The problem with the tree is that it's growing too well, but in a bad way. It's growing saplings through the root base. It's now getting in the utility strip. It's getting in my front lawn. It's getting in the front service sidewalk. If we can try not to get this type of tree again, it also drops an ugly type of foliage out there. It's almost like a nut or some sort of brown thing. I don't even know what it is. But the concern I have most with this type of tree is that I'm concerned that it's going to impact our water lines, it's going to impact our gas lines, and underground service. So if someone can come and check out that tree, we've had to continuously prune it. Maybe it should be a tree that we avoid in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brendan, can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah. So I just want to add something. I think it's great what everybody came up here and said, and this tree thing, I've been I've been actually conscious of it since Hurricane Sandy. I remember, I think it was 2014 or whatever year they were putting them in, driving down Park Avenue and watching them bury these trees or plant these trees with some had the burlap bag still on them, some had still had the wire on them, and some had the pots. And they were the cheapest trees money could buy. And why this stuck out to me in particular is I had a house on Beach Street, and I remember, them having their tree expert come and deem that, 90% of the trees on the block were bad, and they just weren't bad. They survived. But there are many trees that could survive in this zone. New York goes by special zones in landscaping and whatnot. And I think a great example for all of us to learn and pick out trees, and I think a couple of people have mentioned is people in town who are real experts on trees and gardening and so on and so forth. It wouldn't hurt to put a 2-3 person panel together to help us with that. But a great example is just drive through Atlantic Beach. They have beautiful trees, trees that sustain, are good with the environment, trees that don't drop a lot of foliage, and they live and don't take a lot of maintenance. These trees they planted, to Sam's point, I had one in front of my house. They don't grow high, they grow wide and low, and people with carriages and everything else, bicycles or walking, are constantly, running into these trees. So, I'm not a tall man. I go for a walk at night with my dogs, and I'm ducking on the West Olive and West Walnut.
The dogs don't have to duck.
Yeah, the dogs don't have to duck, but I'm ducking and worried about an eye. So, no, I think that was one of the more constructive, although it seems arbitrary or elementary about trees. I think it was one of the more constructive community conversations we had, and I think that we should put a panel together to help out with the grant and pick the trees with experts. I'm sure we could find enough volunteers to do so.
Thank you. Crystal?
Good evening again, gentlemen. I would just like to state that the arborist, whatever trees that was selected after Hurricane Sandy, well, my tree was thriving, and it was beautiful. I don't know the type. However...
There were new ones.
Yes.
Right.
The reconstruction work that was done on Market Street, East Market Street,
right,
that was fine. The trees are dying, so I'd like a new tree when one becomes available. No, honestly.
Oh, because of the construction, your trees died?
No. During the reconstruction of East Market Street, they took the good tree and gave me another tree. And unfortunately, the price tags are still on the trees, $300 or $400. Right. And I know my neighbor across the street, we talk about the trees all the time. They're dying. His is dying, mine is dying. And possibly, that could be looked into, and those trees replaced with something better that will thrive.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add on that since we had that project was constructed by a contractor, so those trees are under a 1-year warranty. So in the spring we'll have them come out and take a look at them.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Is Rudyard Kipling in the audience too? No? Okay, good. We'll close that one then.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for rehabilitation and/or replacement of the city's drinking water sand filtration tanks located at the water purification plant.
So this item allows, as mentioned, us to accept a grant for rehabilitation and replacement of the sand filtration tanks at the water purification plant. This is an important project for water quality. I believe these existing sand filters are 35 years old, but I'll have Russell correct me if I'm wrong on that. Just in case Russell and Patty Bourne are still here, as well as Tyler, if you guys have any further questions.
Questions from the council?
Just out of curiosity, this, and because I don't know the water system, this is when the water comes in initially from the wells, this goes through the filtration first, and then it goes through the pipes that cause the rust?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not going to do anything for the brown water, but it'll be cleaner brown water, right?
Essentially, yes.
Good. Thank you.
Just a quick one. The grant agreement doesn't call for replacing the filter medium. It calls for interior coating, exterior coating. I would assume replacing the filter medium is part of it.
The grant would cover either the rehab or replacement of the whole vessel. Which option we choose, I think, is to be determined. But
I don't mean the vessel itself. When I say filter medium, that's the material inside the vessel that actually filters the water. It's a sand gravel mixture.
Yes.
Yeah. They won't be putting back in the existing sand after they take it out to clean the tank, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, no, they'll replace the filter media.
Okay.
Yes, right.
Because it's not listed in the grant. That's why I was wondering.
It's generally, we keep it general so that it's flexible because, when we write the grant application, we don't necessarily know the exact scope of work. So that would be allowed. Whatever scope of work, that takes place would be covered under the grant.
Okay.
Mike?
And my only question is, obviously there's other tanks we'll need to update and replace. When can we apply for grants for those? Do we have to wait, or
we're being very aggressive. So this grant, we have 10 filters. We think that this grant can cover about two filters. We've been very aggressive applying for grants. I don't want to jinx it here, but we think we may get another round of funding through the same program, the EPA STAG program, which we requested through the congressional funding requests. That amount that was put forth was $2.75 million, and if we were to get that, we'd be finding out probably the end of this year or possibly the early 2025. It depends on the appropriations process and when they can finalize the appropriations bill at the federal level.
Great.
So it's a maybe, but there's a
keep doing you.
Generally a good chance that we might hopefully get that.
And actually, I just want to specify for this group, because we spoke earlier, this is the initial two. I thought there were two being done now, and there were two done before. This is the initial two. The 2.75 will be to cover at least another 3 to 4, if not more.
When you have a home filter, you change it every once in a while. Now, this sand, it gets backflowed and stuff gets taken out of it at certain periods. How often does that happen?
I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And do they have a useful life, so to speak?
Essentially, it's at 35 years, so they're all ready to be changed.
But I mean, the new ones, what would be the expected life?
Essentially 35 years.
Oh, okay.
Public comment?
David Eldridge. In regard to the system that you want to put in, is it a reverse osmosis system of some kind, where every several hours when the tanks fill with water and they're cleaned, they get flushed?
No, so this is a different system.
Is this for the water,
This is for the water purification plant?
for our water that I
Correct, the
receive in
drinking
my
water.
home?
Yes.
Wow, okay. And how often does the system flush itself through the sand-based system or whatever you're using? And how many millions of gallons does it handle?
So off the top of my head, I don't know. I can get back to you on that question.
Okay. All right, because then I'll know.
It works a little differently than the filter in your house.
Okay, because then I'll know what kind of linen to buy and at what price point, so that I don't get my linen when my wife or I do laundry and it's all rusty, or we have to take the...
You too?
Absolutely. This is the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to talk about. I mean, it's getting serious, and I see, okay. The thing is, we'd all like to have clean water with no sediment in it and no rust. For whatever reason, that's there. And I'm glad to hear that you're going to do something, but I'm thinking in the millions of gallons, and then the system flushing every hour to get the rust out, or flushing the freshwater pipes in the ground to get the sediment that lays monthly. And then if the fire department comes and they hit the water at the hydrant, everything gets, there's a turmoil. And then when you turn on the water, we're talking red rust in our water here. And then you want to do your linen, or you want to clean your clothes, or whatever you want to do. It's not going to happen.
The filtration plant won't
anyway,
address that. Just so you know, the filtration plant won't address that.
I would hope that the filtration plant, or what your promise is, and the $2 million spent is going to certainly be worthwhile, so that all of us can benefit from it. I'm not laughing, or it's a serious problem.
I'm hearing you. I just want to make sure you're aware. The filtration plant will not address that. Will not
It
address
won't?
that issue. It will not.
It won't?
It will not. It will address the water coming out of the ground. It will pre-treat the water. The rust, that is something that we have to look at a longer-term solution. Most of that is coming from the distribution pipes. These filters are coming from the very beginning of the process, as opposed to the very end of the process.
Okay.
So distribution pipes is something we have to look at very closely and figure out how we do that. And it will be a significant investment on the city's part.
I'm sure it will be,
to
get it cleaned up.
Yep.
Okay,
We're
thank you
aware.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Christina?
Hi, Christina Kramer. So let me get this straight. We're going to spend $2 million on a filtration system that's not going to bring clean water to our homes?
Incorrect.
What?
No, incorrect. The filtration plant will filter the water that's coming out of the wells. It's at the beginning of the process. So we will filter the water correctly. You will get clean water at the end of the filtration process. What I was mentioning to the individual that just spoke, the gentleman that just spoke, was that the issue with the brown water that happens when there's turbulence, when waters are flushed out, when there's too much going through, will not happen because this filtration plant is before that, prior to that. So will not address anything that happens after that filter. So yes, it will clean the water at the filter, but anything that happens after that filter will not be addressed by the filters. Does that make sense?
It does, but nonsense for spending the money on that, because we have the Lloyd Aquifer. It's the most pristine water source. We have clean water. It's coming up through our crumbling infrastructure, which is the problem why we all have dirty water in our homes periodically, not all the time. So why would we want to have this filter if after it leaves that filter, it's going to run through the crumbling infrastructure and into our houses? Why don't we put that money towards the infrastructure?
So I would argue you'd need both. You don't want to have water that's coming out dirty because the filters are dirty.
How is
and then
it coming
going
out dirty from the Lloyd Aquifer? I'm not being nasty. I'm just trying to understand.
So after the water is removed from the aquifer, it goes to the purification plant to remove any sediments or any bacteria that's in the system, and then it's delivered to you through the other.
Right, but you're going to remove the sediments that, I guess, from traveling from the aquifer up here, and then it's going to travel through our rusty pipes into our home. So what's the point of doing that?
It's a health department requirement. The water leaving the plant has to meet certain requirements to be drinkable for the public.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it does.
It does.
It makes-
That you're going to clean it and then run it through the dirty pipes and put them in our, and put
They're the
it
only
to our
pipes we
houses.
have.
What?
They're the only pipes we have.
I know, but
There's-
I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. Maybe we need to fix the infrastructure before we add a filter.
Well, we have to start with clean water.
And those filters are past their useful life right now, so.
Just one other question. Do we put chlorine in our water?
The water is chlorinated, yes. And it's
Okay.
also, then it's removed.
Yeah, I
once.
had my water tested recently, and I just wanted to report back that it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Good.
So that's good news. But
All right.
this, to me, it's just not making sense. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Crystal?
Good evening again, Crystal Lake. So regarding the Lloyd Aquifer,
You just got to pull it up just a little bit, they won't be able to hear you. There you go.
okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So
I can hear
regarding,
you, but I want them to hear you, that's why.
they're probably tired of hearing me.
No, nobody would ever get tired of hearing you.
Thank you. Regarding the recharge, so when the recharge regarding the Lloyd Aquifer, so from that perspective, does that run along Sunrise Highway, somewhere in that area?
The line
Recharge basin?
between the aquifers,
Correct.
that's about the middle of the island up near the, like the LIE.
Okay. So, as you stated previously, when the water is being filtered from the Lloyd Aquifer that enters into the pipes, the distribution point, that's where the rust evolves or is created.
Correct. So most of the sediment and rust is removed in the purification process, and then due to the age of the city water mains, there's large buildup of sediment in the cast iron pipes, and when they had alluded to it, when the water department does periodically flush the mains to get the sediment out.
Through the hydrants?
Or the hydrants, correct.
Yeah, it's horrible during that time. The water's ferocious. Possibly, maybe there could be at the beginning point and something possibly at the end of the connection that could filter prior going into the homes. You know, like some homes have their own filtered system.
Right. Well, the end point would be the end user, which is the residents. So.
Right, but prior to that connection, maybe there could be some type of temporary filter system available. There has to be something.
It's something we can look into, yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so maybe there could be something on that end prior to the water entering into our homes. Possibly. Must be something there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you. We'll close that.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the replacement of outdoor lighting fixtures from the United States Department of Energy.
Okay, this is another grant item, along with the next agenda item, allows us to accept a grant for outdoor lighting fixtures. Most of the lights will be replaced, will be ice in the area of the ice arena, water purification plant, other areas around the city, basically changes existing lighting systems to LED systems that are much less expensive to operate and better for the environment. The same crew is still here to answer any questions if you need.
Question from the council? Question from the public? Okay.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the replacement of outdoor lighting fixtures from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority and authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget.
So this item, as I mentioned, was the same as item number 7, just a different grant program that's also for replacing lighting fixtures. Patty, Tyler, and Russell are still here if you need.
Question from the council? All right, question from the public? Okay, thank you.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew Barracuda email protection and backup cloud services software.
So this item is to renew the Barracuda email protection and backup cloud services software. It will cover 225 email addresses that are serviced through this contract. We've utilized Barracuda for quite some time. I've been happy with the services to date. They are, we've checked that they are cheaper than other services that are out there. I do have Al Perez here if you have any further questions.
Question from the council.
Yes, Al? Right now, we have, as far as security goes for our emails, we have Microsoft Office 365 security. We have Viper, we have Sonic Wall, and we have Barracuda. Did I get that right? And do we know what the cost, including we have a license for every Microsoft user, every one of the 225?
Yes.
And that,
is a user-based license model. Yes.
right. Do we know what the cost, the total cost is for the Microsoft and the security?
The total cost for Office 365?
Well, for 365 and the Sonic Wall and the Viper and the Barracuda. I can see what the cost is for the Barracuda here.
Correct.
Okay? And I think the Microsoft, I forget what it was, like $100? It was more than that.
It's a monthly cost, and it depends on the license. There's various licenses at different costs.
But don't most of us have the same license?
No, not necessarily. No. Sometimes we have just a low-cost mailbox, and then some users have a larger mailbox with the complete Office suite.
Okay, so do you know what that costs us?
Off the top of my head, standing here, no, but I
Okay,
can get those
all right.
costs for
So,
you, yes.
I just would like to know that. I'd
Yeah,
like
we
to
could
know
get that.
the cost and
Yes.
add in the Sonic Wall and add in the Viper.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Questions from the public? All right, Al, I can't blame you for not having the answers to that because we're discussing something different. So no problem not having that, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Item 10 is a resolution amending resolution number 114 of 24.
So this item is to enter into an agreement with CMA for strategic consultant services for assisting in selling debt. We are talking about item 12, right?
No, we're on item
No.
10.
10.
Item
I'm
10.
sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Skipped it over on 11.
Skip
I was
one.
hoping. I was trying to move forward. I will budget that very much so. Sorry about that. This item is to amend the previous resolution for award of the Pro Shop to the Ice Arena. The amendment is to change the one-year contract to 2 years. Inadvertently, it was put in as 1 year at the last time when we approved it. The RFP that we sent out to the public did include a 2-year period, so we have to change that. In the process, we also changed the guarantee from a personal guarantee to a corporate guarantee, which was a more appropriate vehicle for the vendor that was chosen. So if any further questions, I believe Joe Brand is here if necessary, and legal's here as well.
Questions?
Yes. Dan, as you're aware, this is a relatively cheap rental, $250 a month. I don't know that you can get anything for $250 a month. And now when we originally voted on it, we were told it was 1 year. Now we're being told it's 2 years. And it had a personal guarantee, which almost every lease has. Why are we taking away the personal guarantee?
Joe, well, actually, Stephen, you wouldn't know, right? I don't know if we're taking away the personal guarantee. I think the contract's the same. It's just a 2-year period. But I'll check into that if that's gone. But I don't believe so.
I thought that's what you just said.
No, it's being changed from I'm sorry, not a personal guarantee. It's being changed from an individual bid on it rather than a corporate entity. So we did not think it was appropriate for an individual to bid on it rather than a corporation. If somebody falls in the Pro Shop, they'll sue him personally rather than a corporate entity.
But if he doesn't pay the rent? Is there a personal guarantee?
Right, so that's a different thing. So the change is that it was made to a corporation. We had him incorporate rather than use his personal name. As far as a personal guarantee, whatever language was in the original is still in this one. He's under the same contractual terms as anybody to either pay rent or be dismissed from the property, and we put it out to bid. Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. I know what the cost, but he would be contractually obligated as any other contract is obligated to pay.
And he's operating now, Joe?
He's just getting started now, yeah.
And he's going to sharpen skates? And
Absolutely.
Yeah,
How this came about was after we had the council resolution, he brought it to my attention. He said that, when we answered the RFP, it was for a 2-year commitment, and when we did the council resolution, I don't know if it amounts to more than a typo or an oversight when we wrote the resolution, but in fairness to the operator, they were bidding on a 2-year rental as opposed to a 1-year rental.
Now, in something like this, we don't look at what they make. We don't get a percentage. Like most municipalities do that, and it was something we talked about starting.
Yeah, it all depends on how you would like to set up your contract. I don't anticipate that this is going to be, a $1 million enterprise there. To your point, a couple of the RFP responses that we received for the snack bar there, a couple of people who responded to that did tie in a monthly rent with the addition of gross receipts at whatever percentage they proposed.
Okay, but this
Roy, as a guy who played hockey as a kid and up until adulthood, it's really important to have a good pro shop and the rink, because that's what keeps people coming and brings people in. So in this situation, I think it's important that we have quality, and perhaps I think that we've got that.
Nobody denies it's good to have quality, but this is basically taxpayer money. We pay a lot of money for that place. We put in a lot of repairs.
Right.
Relatively
What I'm saying is that
millions
this
of dollars.
enhances the rink so that we can make more money.
A lot of things enhance the rink, but that doesn't mean the taxpayers should take a beating on it. $250 a month. I understood for a year. It was okay. He's just getting started. Now we're changing it to 2 years, and in no way, if he does really well, it doesn't benefit the city. And that's what I'm trying to get away from, because the taxpayers should benefit when their property is being used for people making money.
It actually does benefit the city, because that means more people are coming to the rink and using it, and using the pro shop. So it does benefit the city.
So they're coming because of the pro shop. They're not coming for the rink. That's what you're saying?
It helps the facility to have it as a service to the people that utilize it. There has to be a starting point somewhere.
Yeah.
I mentioned it before. These guys aren't here to make a living at it. They do it as a second profession for themselves. I think it's a starting point. The $250 a month is $250 a month that we wouldn't be receiving if the space stayed empty. So I think it's worth a shot that, maybe 2 years from now we're having a conversation that we can get more rent out of them.
Would the space stay empty, Joe?
Yeah.
So in other words, nobody wants to rent in that rink?
He was the only one that answered the RFP.
But the space, we're talking about the space. We're not talking about the snack bar.
This is the pro shop space.
Pro shop, yeah. So we couldn't use the space for anything else. Didn't we use it as a gym at one point?
No, this is a small area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a box built out in the lobby of the ice arena.
Yeah.
Mike?
And again, just one quick thing before you go, Mike. It's important to note that the RFP was put out for 2 years, not for 1 year. So contractually, we have to honor what we put out to the bid. That's why it's changed 2 years. Not that we were trying to give the guy an extra year. The RFP went out for a 2-year period, and that's what he bid on. So that's what we should be doing. I also don't know if it's important to point out what was being paid prior to this contract, Joe, if you know.
It was less than that, considerably. I think it was $100 a month.
Just to give a little color as well, just because I do spend some time at the rink with my son. This is a service for the children who play hockey in Long Beach. Often, if somebody wanted to get their skates sharpened, the kids could not do it. They couldn't do it on their own. They'd have to go out of town to actually do it. The gentleman who has this, who's successfully bid on the RFP, is a guy that most of the hockey people in the community know. His child plays hockey. He's a diligent guy. He's making improvements to the area. The area is extremely small. The pro shop is a very small
I mean, when you
area.
say small, what dimensions? What are we doing? I mean, I don't.
I wouldn't bet it's more than like 12 by 15 feet.
I mean, I think you could fit it in this half to there.
Yeah, it's small.
Yeah.
That's 180
Can I
square feet.
ask a question?
Yes.
Is the occupant doing any capital improvements to the space? I imagine it's been sitting for some time.
I mean, beyond paint job and,
Machinery that he's putting in? stuff like
skate
that?
sharpening
Skate
equipment and stuff like that. And look, they'll get involved with as much as they can turn a profit on, like anybody else. If for the most part, the big ticket items that people are buying for the sport of hockey, they're buying at much larger pro shops or outlets
Where they can fit
from
a
the
pair,
Northeast.
of goalie pads.
Yeah,
It doesn't
this
seem
stuff
like
is
that
more
shop.
nickel and dime stuff, last minute, skate blades, skate sharpenings, neck guards,
It's
tape,
it's for
a
the kid-
busted stick. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's for the kid who
it's
gets
an
his mouth
amenity
guard before a game.
that's very, very necessary and very much appreciated, as a user when then the opportunity arises that you need something, so.
I imagine this would help when we try and, we've been having, I don't want to say a problem, but there's not a lot of people jumping at the snack bar opportunity either. I mean, anything to get people through the doors of the arena, I think.
Keep them there.
Yeah, I mean, just give, if I have to take my kid, my wife, and two of my kids to get skates sharpened, I might go get something at the concession while we're waiting. It's just, we got to do things to improve the arena. I mean, I get it from the outside looking, it's easy to say, oh, $250 for a business is cheap, and it does sound like that. But, it's a couple hundred square feet in a vacant space that can always be revisited in 2 years. I think the start is to get somebody in there who's willing to do it. There's a reason from a business standpoint, nobody's done it over the last few years. There's a reason for that. If there was a lot of money there, I'm sure there'd be a line for people.
Take into consideration, too, the window of opportunity for the hockey season where the bulk of the people are going to be in there is from September through March. So you got some downtime, too, that has to be a consideration.
John?
Maybe this question for Stephen is, so we put out an RFP for 2 years, but we voted to approve a 1-year agreement. So what is the legal obligation of the city in that instance that the RFP and what was voted on and approved don't match?
Well, this is the point of this item, is to amend the previous item to extend the 2-year. This will be awarding the original RFP, essentially.
And if we don't?
I guess he's going to leave.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Does it void his
No, so there's still a
agreement?
1-year term, and there's an opportunity to basically award for the other year of the RFP at a later date, but I don't think we'll need that.
But I think he did not sign the contract yet because the RFP that he responded to is a 2-year contract. So
Yeah,
if
the
you
contract.
refuse it, I think it would be.
So he wants it corrected before
Yes.
he signs? Okay.
I don't think we're going to have that problem anyway.
And Joe, you said that nobody ever came in. We didn't have this before? We didn't have skate sharpening before?
No, we had somebody occupying the pro shop, but they were paying considerably less. They were probably about $100 a month, if I'm not mistaken.
We used to drop him in Jim Young's box on Forrester Street. For
That's
$2,
right.
right? We'll go back to that.
Worked for Jimmy. But they were more in the apparel business. They were heavily into the the local hockey program that plays here, uniforms and hats, sweatshirts, T-shirts, that kind of stuff, more so than the actual rink applications.
Yeah, essentially they weren't able to staff it. They're busy with their lives and they weren't able to staff the shop. This guy is making a concerted effort to be there and try to make something out of it.
Well, that raises an interesting question. So if this guy is doing this kind of as a second career thing. I mean, so are we setting ourselves up into the same scenario of the previous shop where there's not a lot of consistency of who's there and when, and, is there going to, if we're going to turn this thing around, there needs to be, to Brendan's point, some consistency.
Yeah, this is the conversation we had when the original resolution was passed. He's obligated to it, and I'm fully confident that he's going to provide the hockey services that he's promised.
I mean, we're trying to make a real run with this
that's
rink,
the
right?
point. We want to make it better.
Yeah, right.
We don't want to do more of the same.
Right, so I hope he's not watching.
He actually worked. He still is an
shuffling
equipment.
sticks right now.
He was an equipment manager for the New York Islanders. So this is his bag.
We'll still have him anyway. How about the public? Comments, questions? All right, thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Now, item 12, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement for strategic consulting services.
Okay, so I tried to jump ahead to this item before. This item is to enter into an agreement with CMA for strategic consulting services to assist us in selling our debt. If you have any further questions, Ina Resnick is here to answer any of your questions.
Question from the council.
The agreement says the term shall be from the date hereof to June 30th, 2024. I'm assuming that's supposed to be 2025.
Yes, it should. The resolution says June 30th, 2025.
I know
so
that.
yes,
I'm
yeah.
talking
So-
about the actual agreement, which
Yeah,
is
it's
why I like to look at the agreements. That's why I ask for them.
Yep.
The other thing was the agreement, I'm assuming if it's a June to June agreement, with 3.5 months in. So why are we approving something 3.5 months into? Should we shift the dates from October to October or November to November?
Ina, can you answer if it's a one-year contract or if they've been providing services to date? Because I have worked with CMA this year.
This is better? Yep. Yeah. Okay, so no, it actually should be for the fiscal year because it's on a fiscal year basis. That's how they're budgeted for. And we are approving it a little bit later in the year, but it should cover the whole year, July 1st through June 30th.
So if we had to pay them anything during
We
this fiscal-
haven't had to pay them, but they did represent us in a sale of the bonds, notes.
And then on page 3 of the agreement, it says that CMA and 2 of its associated persons are currently subject to a legal event that could be material to the client's evaluation of the firm. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, there was some controversy. I don't, from the top of my head right now, I'm not going to do it much justice to tell you exactly what happened. But they were accused of calculating for, I think it's the city of Rochester, how much debt the city needs, and the way that the agreement is structured, they get some base payment and then the percentage of the outstanding debt. So they're vigorously defending themselves, and they're saying that that's not the role that they played with the city of Rochester. I know that in our case, it's between me and DPW and other department managers and the city manager, we decide what are the borrowing needs of the city. So they're a reputable firm, very well respected within the industry, and they're, I think, including it in a contract for the full disclosure.
Okay. And then I guess my last, I don't know if it's a question, more of a comment, but the resolved clause says, and subject to other such terms and conditions as the city manager may deem proper. which says to me that we reviewed a contract, we're being asked to vote on it, but then the city manager can change the contract after we vote on it, which seems to defeat the purpose of the council reviewing the contract, if it can be modified after we vote. So I guess, well, it's a simple solution. I'm going to propose an amendment to remove that clause.
I'd like to ask a question before we go there. Is this standard verbiage in a contract, or is this something that was put in?
This isn't part of the contract, it's part of the resolution.
Okay.
Ina, or Stephen, can you tell me how this was written last year when we entered into the yearly contract?
I'm not sure about last year, depending on the item. Sometimes we have that verbiage, sometimes we do not. I know the previous council, I typically did not have that language, but like in the event of what you just mentioned, like the June 30th, 2024, that needs to be fixed. You know, sometimes things in contracts need to be fixed post-meeting, so that kind of leaves that discretion open.
But that's not what this says. This says subject to terms and conditions as the city manager can deem proper. So that says the city manager can change the contract after we approve it.
Which would include
yeah, just not the material
price,
terms.
too.
I'm sorry?
Terms and condition includes the price.
Yeah, but the funding would not be authorized then.
I don't know if it matters in this case. I'm not aware of any changes that the city manager would want to make to the contract.
Then we
It's a
don't
pretty
need it.
vanilla contract. The services of the financial municipal advisor are best practices as per Governmental Finance Officers Association. So it's a necessity for the city. I don't know, I defer to the city manager, but I think that language can be taken out if there is a concern.
So this goes to, I guess, how we as council members view our roles, what our job is as council members. Speaking solely for myself, I've always viewed my role, which is why I've always asked for contracts, to review these things, and as you see, you found some errors. That's how I view my role. So if I have to approve a contract, it shouldn't be in my view, it should not be modified after the council approves it, because that's part of our due diligence, is to review and approve, and then the city manager executes. So people may see it differently, you know, but that's how I view my job up here. So with that, I guess I'm gonna make a motion to amend, to remove, and subject to other such terms and conditions as the city manager shall deem proper.
Should we discuss it before you make the motion, or is it too late to discuss it?
No, I'm willing to do.
In this situation, and I agree with what you're saying, it's the council's responsibility. Sorry. It's the council's responsibility to, as the oversight, certainly. But if this is about going to a contract and there's a mistake in the contract and the city manager can't make that change, then we have to come back and redo it on another
Which we
day.
just did on the other contract.
Right, we just did that.
Right. So if he
But
could
this
make,
is- this
but if
is
he
not
could make
saying
that
fi-
change, then we don't have to redo it.
This is not saying fix a mistake. This is saying
that's
terms and conditions as the city manager deems appropriate. That is changing the
Right,
terms of the contract.
Right, as we just did with the pro shop, that the terms and conditions were wrong.
Okay.
And so if he could have changed it, we would have saved ourselves probably 45 minutes just now.
And that's maybe how we view, so last meeting, some of the council members said they don't feel they need to review contracts, that they trust the staff.
No one said they don't have to review contracts. Some said they have to review every contract.
Right, but some people feel they have trust in the staff, that they're doing the right thing, so they're okay with taking the staff's word.
Well, I said I trust the staff, yes.
Right. So
Okay.
I come at this.
I'm the only one who said that,
Right,
though.
but I'm saying I come at this from a slightly different position as the person who was here 5 years ago that had to clean up the mess of the people before.
And less than 5 years ago as well.
Right. So the whole point is, we got into that mess partially because the council didn't do its job. It wasn't doing its due diligence. It wasn't monitoring finances and contracts and things like that. So I come at it from a different place.
Right.
You know, you've come into this when a lot of this has been fixed, so you don't have that taint, I guess I'll call it, that I have.
Okay.
But in the previous administration, we would not allow that to be in a resolution, because we said, once the council reviews and approves the contract, that is the contract.
Well, I think that from time to time, there are probably minor changes, and I won't call them mistakes, but, you know, something's written the wrong way, and you give the city manager the opportunity to change that rather than have to revisit it the way we're doing it now. But also to your point, though, when you hire the people that you hire, you're looking for the quality people who are going to do the best job possible, right?
But
Okay.
mistakes happen. You saw it just happen.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Mistakes
And I
do
think that's the
happen.
reason for this verbiage.
You might not call it mistakes, but they are mistakes.
No, I just called it a mistake.
No, you said, I'm not going to call it mistakes. But those things happen, okay?
Yeah.
And there's a provision to change it. You bring it back in front of the council, and the council votes to change it. That's the way it should be done. If you are looking at a contract, you don't, this is the contract you're approving. You don't say, and I'm not talking about Dan, you don't say, the city manager
But we
can
don't
double
sign the
price."
contract.
What?
We as the council don't sign the contract.
No,
We
we
pass a
vote
resolution to
allowing,
allow the
yes.
city manager to enter into a contract with
Into
someone.
that contract.
Into a, yes, into
Yes.
a contract.
Yes, that particular contract.
There's a simple solution. Like I said, I think I'm going to move to amend to remove "and subject to other such terms and conditions as the city manager may deem appropriate." It's a simple solution. What's that?
Why are you clapping?
I'm sorry.
Didn't this item inadvertently say 24, so are you saying we shouldn't do anything on this one either?
Well, my there's, forgive me, there's a legal term for it, when you make a minor, a Scribner's edit. That's different, Scribner's error. That's different than terms and conditions. You can make a Scribner's error correction. That you can do.
Well, a term and condition would be, as we were talking about with the pro shop, a term and condition was a year or 2 years. And it was put up RFP for 2 years, but inadvertently written
But so's the
as
money.
1 year.
And what you're saying is basically the city manager can say, hey, you know what? I'm not charging you $3,000. I'm only charging you $1,000. Under what
Well,
we're
I think under this
right
current city manager, we don't have that problem. We've had that problem in the past, in the near past, but we don't have it now.
Well, that's why we look at this, so we don't have that
But
problem.
you're
guys have that experience,
You're
so I understand.
conflating individuals. What I'm saying is systemically. Again, my view, the council's role is to review and.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Let's take the 2024 example, that mistake. So 3 people sign off on the resolution. Several people in legal probably were involved with writing this and seeing it. And yet, after a half a dozen people reviewed this, it still got through with a mistake that I caught. Okay? That's why it's important. Minor mistake. It's minor. But we have also had things come through with financial errors in them that were not insignificant.
Of course.
So that is
Can I-
why.
Dan, can I ask, is this time sensitive?
It's not, I mean, we're already a few months behind, I don't know.
Why can't we take this offline, talk about it as a group, fix it to where everybody's comfortable, and just table it for tonight?
Well, taking those few words out, and then he can
Or,
sign
yeah,
it.
whatever
And then he
is-
can sign it.
Dan, do you mind us taking those words out?
On this contract, no, I don't mind it.
So,
Well, I want to know why they're in there. I mean, that's the point.
It's a mistake.
I mean, if they're in there for a good reason, then maybe they should stay there. That's my point.
what's the good reason?
as I just said, terms and conditions may be what we talked about.
Maybe minor, and I just said...
I didn't say minor, I said
that's-
what we talked about.
Right.
And then
That's-
they're not in the contract.
And that's how we change it. We change it by coming back, like we did tonight.
Okay, then we change it by coming back.
All right, well, I mean, I made a motion, I don't know
Yeah,
if no one
we're-
has seconded it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we're still on the same motion. Mr.
So
Lester,
Dan-
you second?
Sorry, I didn't hear your response, Dan.
On this issue, I don't have much of an issue with it being changed. I mean, this is one that, my only concern is, I don't know how it read last year. I didn't pull up last year's resolution, and I'm very curious to see if it read exactly the same last year when the two same individuals voted for it. I'm just curious. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't have that language. But I'm very curious to see how it read last year.
We're not
compare
looking
this
to
year.
create a gotcha moment here, we're just trying to do...
I think you just created it, but it's okay, let's go.
How is this a gotcha moment? I'm trying to fix...
It's all right, let's vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Dan, what is, you're the one ultimately who has to be comfortable. This isn't a show for the public. People want to clap and,
Yeah, in
it's their
this
enjoyment.
situation, I have no
It's
issue.
for the city, so.
Yeah.
In this situation, is there any, is there any con to having that language? It's what you're comfortable with?
Yeah,
You have to live with the decision.
I'm completely
I agree
comfortable.
with everybody here has valid points. And, I just want the best decision for the city, so.
So I don't remember the contract word for word, but I will say that if for some reason we have to go to the market an extra time and we decide we need money for an emergency expense that we don't already have allocated, and we need to get a bond authorization out to CMA and work forward from there. If I do not, like I said, I'd have to go through the contract and see if it has a certain number.
Resolution.
But if we only have, say, we can only go to market in February and October, whatever it is, then
we'd have to re-vote on it.
we would have to then amend their contract and vote on a new amended contract, but it may be time sensitive. Obviously, in that situation, I would come before the board and say, I have to amend the contract to allow an additional bond authorization, which is not likely. But with this language in there, I would be able to do that, and with your approval, do it. But without this language in there, we would have to do a new authorization, get on a resolution, vote for it at a city council meeting, and then go to the bond process. So there is a worry on it a little bit, but do I expect that to happen? No. I mean, do I see it as a strong possibility? No, but could it happen? Yes, and then it will create, you guys have to know that it will create an issue if we have to go to bond.
Dan, the resolution is
I have the last year's resolution.
You have the last year's resolution.
Okay, so from the proceedings from the July 5th meeting of 2023, the acting city manager shall retain capital market advisors, Great Neck, New York, ongoing strategic consultants by CMA Strategic Consulting Group for a term of 1 year at a cost of $6,000 per month and subject to other terms and conditions as the acting city manager shall deem proper. That's a different contract? This is a different one, okay.
But I think that same...
So that's standard
The
verbiage
same language as
in the
last year.
resolution.
So, but it does say, and subject to such other terms
And
and
subject to
conditions.
such other terms and conditions as the acting city manager shall deem proper.
Was that signed off?
Adopted unanimously.
That was resolved?
By who? Who voted on it last year?
I don't have that in front of me.
Whoever
I
was
just
on
have
the
the
council last
proceedings.
year.
Who was on the council last year?
Both of you were on the council last year.
I was,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know that I voted on it. I don't know.
It says
Was
in
it
the-
Adopted unanimously.
It had the amount in it, didn't it?
Was it unanimous?
Didn't it
It
have?
was unanimous, yeah. It said
Didn't it
6,000
have 6,000 a month?
per month.
Yeah, so it had an amount in it.
Yes.
It's
So-
not
so
something,
does
the
this.
terms and conditions,
No, this doesn't have an amount.
no, this has
Within the
no-
agreement, there's a billing rate.
All right, we're still in the middle of a motion. So
We have
that
a
has been,
motion
yeah,
and
we
it's
have a motion
seconded.
that's been seconded. So to remove the language from the item,
No.
Councilmember Bendo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lester?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt?
No.
Vice President Fiamara?
Doesn't matter to you? It matters to him, no.
President Finn?
No.
Okay.
That seems to be the standard verbiage, and I think a mountain's been made out of a molehill tonight. But we'll go forward.
just on any contracts, we would not be able to increase the value of a contract by more than $20,000 without bringing it back to the city council.
That's right.
Because that's the threshold, that if at any point the value of the contract goes up, and by the way, the value of this contract, it's not set, right? So if we decide to issue $100 million worth of notes, it's a percentage of the total issuance. But in case we have a set price of $6,000 a month, the contract that Dave had just brought up, and if we had to go to amend it, anything over $20,000 will not give the controller's office authority to continue paying on it.
That's the addition of 20,000.
That's the addition of 20,000.
Right, so the city manager could reduce the price.
But you don't see any contracts below
No,
$20,000.
I'm not talking about what you see. I'm
Oh.
just saying legally, under these terms, the city manager could reduce the price.
Yes,
Yeah.
on any contract.
Wouldn't that be good if we could reduce the price? Wouldn't reducing the price be good?
Not if you're paying somebody, not if they're paying you, I mean.
Oh.
You know.
In this situation, we're paying them.
Well, I know, but in the other situation, somebody was paying us. That's why I don't like those.
What situation was that?
The grocery shop.
Okay.
Thank you, Ina.
Thanks, Ina. Moving on to the next. Comment from the public?
Eileen Hessian. There's no mention of what this is going to cost us. I see what the compensation list is here, and it's very confusing. For example, they say 95 cents per $1,000 of bonds issued. We have no idea how many bonds are going to be issued. Do you have any idea of what this is going to cost the city for the year?
The amount to be taken bonds varies greatly depending on what we approve and move forward with in our capital budget. But we know what projects we want to do. We have a 5-year capital plan that we do typically all the time. And then what we have to do is just basically calculate which jobs we feel we can move forward with at that time, and we will bond appropriately for that. But it's all based on the capital plan, which was approved by the city council.
But you see what I'm saying? There's no way of telling if this is a $100 project or a $20 million project.
This contract would be based on the amount of bonding that we do.
I know, I
So,
see it here, but you can't even give a round number for what it would cost us?
Ina, do we know what our last bond authorization would be? I mean, we could go off of what our last one was, but it depends on if we feel that we could do more capital projects this year than last year, it will change. It will be based on how much we borrow for capital programs.
Yeah, it's very confusing to read.
But we wouldn't be able to give you a solid number without our bond authorization ready and without projects.
Yeah, we have it every year because we build, we repair, we buy equipment. Yeah, so we usually budget $125,000 for their services, for representing us. It depends on how often we have to go to the market. In the last couple of years, we had to go twice to the market. Before that, 3 years before that, we would only do it once in February. I believe that from this current authorization that we received from the City Council in July of 2024, most of it was already borrowed for, so I don't foresee there being any additional borrowing in February.
So you're giving me an idea that it's $125,000?
Not more than that, but I
Okay.
think that it might be half of that.
Thank you very much. The other question I had was in Section 1, they talk about, well, first of all, the issue is bond and note financing. That's what they call the issue. And then in 1.01, in 2.02, the city would pay more from bond counsel. Shouldn't they be counseling us on bonds?
No, they're working with underwriters they're representing the city to the market, and they're getting the rates that the city would have to pay.
All right, I don't understand.
Okay, but the bond sale is a legal document. So bond counsel job, it's an attorney who reviews this document to make sure that it has all disclosures and the city is properly
All right,
represented.
I thought that was
and
their job.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll close that.
Okay. Item 13 is resolution to reschedule the regular council meeting scheduled for November 5th, 2024 to November 6th, 2024.
Okay, so hopefully this issue is a lot less controversial than the last few. This item's to move is a resolution to reschedule the regular council meeting from November 5th due to Election Day to November 6th, the following Wednesday.
Any questions or comments from the council? You guys don't want to watch election night right here?
It's probably going to still be going on Wednesday anyway.
So will this.
It will be fine.
So will this, though.
Yeah.
Questions or comments from the public? We'd love to see you come down.
All right.
Okay. Is that the first one we did without a...
Yeah. Item 14 has been taken off the calendar. Item 15 is approval of minutes of prior meeting, October 1st, 2024. Do I have a motion? Anyone?
I'll motion.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Okay, on to the voting portion. Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding emergency ambulance services. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
I'll second it.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for the 24-25 fiscal year. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the development of a roadway safety action plan. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I do.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the purchase and planting of trees. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second? I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes, and I'd like to say that it was a really good discussion, and I really hope we get the right trees this time. I really do. And so anybody who can help with good suggestions.
We all do.
Yeah.
And that's a yes, correct?
Something we can
Yes.
agree on.
Thank you.
Trees.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes, the passion for green space in the city is palpable for sure. I think a combination, we have a lot of buttons to push. Christina mentioned the Environmental Advisory Board. It's a great idea. In coalition with DPW and some other people we can call in, of course, yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yeah, I echoed my comments before. It was a very positive, conversation. Those are the conversations that, I invite into this room instead of people cheering and clapping on disagreement. People disagreeing up here and trying to help the city. I think most of you should be ashamed of yourself to do that, and I say that openly. And I say that with not holding back, or don't ask me for an apology either, but I vote yes.
President Finn.
I think I'll never see nothing as lovely as a tree. That's a yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the rehabilitation and/or replacement of the city's drinking water sand filtration tanks located at the water purification plant. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora. President Finn.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the replacement of outdoor lighting fixtures from the United States Department of Energy. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
Second. Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for the replacement of outdoor lighting fixtures from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority and authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
I will.
Oh, already got it. Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
And I think one thing that we didn't mention, that we're going to save over $30,000 a year just on electric bills for the city with the new bulbs. So that's always something great. Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew Barracuda email protection and backup cloud services software. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 10 is a resolution amending resolution number 11424. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Well,
Or John, whoever.
give it to,
Okay.
he gets
Voting.
extra credit for that.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 11 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the agreement for design and engineering services for the Northshore Critical Infrastructure Protection Project. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
I'll second it.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Before I vote, I just have to say, this is one of the things that really bothers me. I know it's a very important project, but we're overrun now by $1.3 million, which we're not sure we're going to get back. And it's not really anybody in the city's fault, and that really bothers me. But it's so important that we have to go forward, so I vote yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
And Roy, and that's where we're going to go after him. Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yeah, I want to echo what Roy and Mike said. I mean, I think it's a shame, and I think these guys have to be held accountable. We have to go after them at any cost, whether it's with inside counsel, outside counsel, or a mix of both, but I vote yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 12 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement for strategic consulting services. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
So you got to see a good example of their democracy in action on this one. So, but I'm going to vote no.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
I see everybody's point on this, but when you hire a city manager, you have to hire somebody, and I understand, you know, some of these, well, only two people up here have been on the council beforehand and have scars of the past, you know, administrations, but I believe when you hire somebody, you empower somebody because you trust them. I think Dan has showed how financially responsible he is. I think he showed with a 0% tax hike, being the first city manager in I don't know how long to help do that. To tie his hands in a situation such as that with some verbiage, I'm going to vote yes and trust in our city manager.
President Finn.
I agree with you, John. It's democracy in action, and you're doing your due diligence. I appreciate that very much, seriously. With that said, I believe this is probably standard verbiage over quite a few years. We'll probably go back and look now. As Chris just said, We hired a quality city manager, and I have to say, so many people are coming up to me in the street and saying that, and I already believed it. So I do trust the man. But once again, as Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. But yeah, I'm voting yes for this.
Item 13 is a resolution to reschedule the regular council meeting scheduled for November 5th, 2024 to November 6th, 2024. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second? Second. Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
City Manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Will make a motion to close the meeting.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Okay.
Now the moment we've all been waiting for. All right. Ron Paganini. Oh, good. I was looking in the back, I didn't see you.
You got to keep moving, you know. Ron Paganini, Long Beach. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Ron.
I come here in pain, what I have to say. And it should have never happened, but I'm sick over this thing. Now, what am I sick over? The housing authority, okay? Back in 2000, I went to Mr. Bendo's administration with Donna Gaden, and I said, something's going on over in housing. They're down money, close to $1 million. That's what I told them. They knew. How did I know? You got whistleblowers. You can't hide nothing in this town. We know that. But Mr. Bando did nothing in 4 years. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm here. There are people, renters, who don't want to pay their rent. Not that they don't have the money, because it was like a chain reaction. Started with a Ramo. 8 years. One didn't want to pay, another didn't want to pay. Who are these people? They don't want to pay, and they have money, but they were allowed to do this because of the trustees who run the authority, who appoint the director. They did this, okay? So when I came and told you guys in public, basically what was going on months ago, in the very beginning, you guys started to look into it. You said you would, and you are. And I know that for a fact. You're going to get to the bottom of it. These people don't belong here, those trustees. I'm going to tell you why. There was a case, they brought somebody who didn't pay their rent for 8 years. They brought him to this court downstairs, okay? So the authority brought this person to court, right? 8 years after the fact. The statute, there was a statute of 6 years. They didn't care. They knew. Mr. Cruz knew too, okay? But with me, with my big mouth and bringing it up here, I guess they ran scared, okay? Now they're all running scared. So basically what happened is $57,000 wasn't paid. All they had to pay was $357 a month. They had the money. They didn't want to pay. The trustees let them get away with it. So the statute ran out, so this person had to pay 2 years out of the 8. Stuck us, the taxpayers, for $51,000, okay? So basically that's what happened, but there's more, there's plenty more. It could be 50, 60, 70 people not paying rent. We all know these people have to go, and I'm sure you're going to get rid of them. Okay, they broke the law, they broke the trust, okay? And John Bendo, if you would have done your job, John, can you explain why you didn't do anything? Can you explain why?
So, first things first.
Yeah.
You probably need to go read the city charter, because the Housing Authority is a separate board unto itself.
I know
The
that.
city council has zero oversight
Right.
over the Housing Authority. The only tie between a city administration and the Housing Authority is that the city manager, with no input from the city council, appoints the housing board members.
Yes, I get it.
So, you're coming here complaining to the city council, you need to be going to the Housing Authority
I
meeting
did.
and complaining to
I
them.
did. I went to the-
Because all he can do is appoint one board member a year as a term expires. That's the only authority he has. So go read the city charter. You're coming up here and you're making accusations without knowing what you're talking about.
It's criminal.
It
what's
is
happened.
criminal. I agree with you
So why
wholeheartedly.
didn't you go to the law? Why didn't you bring the controller? Why didn't you go to HUD? You knew.
It is not.
Why didn't
it
you
is
do
the
that?
job of the Housing Authority.
It's your
board
job as knowing.
members.
You knew. You should have went to the
It is the
authorities.
job. You're coming up here, and it's like, why don't you tell me to go tell Jetty they got to charge less for a burger?
We do charge less.
That's besides the
You're
point.
coming up here and asking us to do something we have no authority to do.
If you know
you need to
if
take
you know
this
a
to the
crime
housing
is
board.
being done, if you know a crime is being done, you can't report it.
Did you report it?
I didn't know at the
Did you
time.
report
I
it?
didn't know at the time
You
what
just
it
came
was.
up here and said you
No.
knew about it because you told me.
I
So
didn't,
you
I
can't
didn't
have
know
it
the
both ways.
details. I didn't know the details. You did.
Okay.
You
I
did.
know details.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. But I will say this, we will look into it, and we are going to look into it. Thank you, Ron, I appreciate it.
I think you're calling me next.
Yeah, you're right.
Eileen Hessian. I'm just wondering, are you having work sessions anymore?
We probably will.
Oh, you haven't been, though. Are they going to be open?
No, we had two.
That were open to the public?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, thank you.
We had
Yeah, I
one
must
for
have
the
missed it.
No, we had three. Actually, we had
Oh,
three.
sorry, you're right. We had that.
But the
yes.
kind of,
We've had three,
yes.
actually, three.
The discussion that you had before would probably have been taken care of in a work session. So
About what? We've discussed an awful lot up here tonight.
everything that was a controversial subject could have been taken care of in a work session. Also, what can happen in a
that's
work
what this meeting's
session
for.
is that, you know, when sometimes people say, well, I don't know about that, I'll get back to you. If you talked about it in the work session, you would know you didn't know about it and that you wouldn't have to get back to people because
Right, but
you'd know it.
But so the city council meeting, that's what really it's about, and you get
Right.
to come up and comment. In a work session, you can't. So, in actuality, it's probably better for especially you, but the public.
Okay. I have another question. You may have heard people in the city talking about their water bill. We've been very happy that there was no tax increase this year, just like last year. That was very good. But it seems like an awful lot of...
No, last year there was a tax increase, but this
no,
year
there
there
wasn't.
wasn't.
That was a...
No, there was a tax increase because I paid more taxes. So there was a tax increase.
I thought that,
That was the payment on the Haberman settlement. The
Haberman,
actual tax
right.
increase was
Well,
zero.
I paid more property taxes, so let's not say we didn't pay more.
Okay,
because
well, that brings
everybody in
me-
this room paid more, I hope. I don't hope.
That brings me to my next question. But first, let me finish about the water.
Let's just be honest, right?
It was not a tax increase. It
If
was
I pay more
because of
money,
the-
it was
Right,
increased,
Okay.
right?
No.
Roy, if you pay more money, is it increased?
Well, you know,
Is that a yes or a no, Roy?
All right, you know what? My 3 minutes is being used.
Thank you,
So,
all
the water, mine almost doubled, but I know people who for this quarter are paying $700 and $800 for a quarter for the water. That is beyond ridiculous. My sister out in Suffolk County pays $30 a quarter. So, you know, nice to have no tax increase, but I call that an increase. I paid more, it's an increase. The other question I have is, on my property tax bill, there are two items, the super block deficit and the $75 million judgment, neither of which I am responsible for, nor is anybody else sitting back there responsible for it, but we're all paying a huge amount of money on these two things.
Me too.
My question is this coming up again? This is the first half of my tax bill. Will this amount of money come up in the second half of the tax bill? Do I have to pay this amount twice? Yes?
Yes.
Do you know what the prices are, what the amounts are? They're just
I
unbelievable.
don't know, no.
And you know, there was somebody responsible for some of that stuff, and nothing ever happened about that. And that's an outrage.
You're right.
Couldn't agree more.
You're right.
That's why I'm up here. Ina, you wanted to say something?
Your water rates did go up, but the sewer rates went down. So the total between the water and sewer for the total bill should not have been very materially increased. It's really by $10 or $20. However, I did find out from our water and sewer administrator that the consumption, because the weather was so good and there was very little rain. So if you compare your bill, look at the consumption, or you're more than welcome to bring it to my, yes. And did the consumption go up? Yeah, so this summer was much drier, and therefore you would see the increase in the rates.
Ina, I have to correct you. My water bill is over $900. And, you know, I live with my wife. That's it. We don't have anything leaking or anything.
How much was it last year for the same quarter?
$300 for the same period. Okay? I don't know. I've asked the water department for itemized bill. They've been trying to help me. I still can't. I'm still not getting the itemization. I'm trying to get the tax department to tell me why my taxes went up $2,500 this just now. They don't even answer the phone. You know, and I'm a city councilman. I don't know how these people put up with it, you know?
I will find out your property address, and I will look into your water sewer situation. It should have went up by almost 1/3, the water, but the sewer total that you're paying
I remember that. I remember that's what we were sold. Oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to go up. Well, I've never had a $900 water bill. Never.
Okay,
Not even close.
Nobody brought it up to my attention, so I'm going to take a look and
Thank you, Ina.
we'll have an answer.
David Eldridge.
Thank you very much. Hope everybody can hear me. My concerns are about our beautiful coastline and protecting it. Protecting it against specifically the threat of these wind farms that they're going to put up. And the threat of them trying to get the plug and play or the lines through our community here in Long Beach, not anywhere else, not in Lido, not at Point Lookout, not towards Atlantic Beach. Whatever the real estate issues or whatever, I don't understand why it appears like they're getting a pass and that they can come through and they can ding up the streets and they're going to do plug and play. And it's that alone is offensive. They're ruining the coastline. We know already the technology has failed. So these grifters and snake oil salesmen come from the other side of the world, from the Scandinavian countries, and they're pushing this product over here that's already broken. And it's breaking at the rate of one arm, 300 feet long, fiberglass arm, on these farms, on these windmills, every 18 months or less. They're coming off. Polluting the ocean. It's a detriment and a danger to our families. And we have a great community. I haven't seen, in my experience, anything along the eastern seaboard, to me, that represents the way this community, Long Beach, is. And the things that I see with the kids and the families and everybody on their bicycles in a relaxed setting every summer, enjoying our beautiful community out there. It's bad enough, but we've become desensitized to the fact that every day you've got 16 container ships. I count them. I see them, 16, 18. They're on their way to the ports in New Jersey, offloading. Maybe some of them are bringing in gas. Whatever their product line is, there's 16 of them out there every day. There's people that have beautiful homes. You improve the superblock, built these magnificent buildings, and they get to see that too. But we've become desensitized. I don't want to see 149 wind farms, out there. 439 blades. There's 3 on every one. I just said 149 times 3 comes out to 439 blades that eventually are going to break off, and the oil that leaks out of them. 1,000-foot high towers. The blades are 300 feet long, or the length of a football field. And they've had it happen in Nantucket and in other places, and in Europe. I don't see anything that can come out of it that's good, and they can't even run for 50 to 60% of the time because of the winds that they have to shut them down that they are subject to out here on our coast. It's crazy. So thank you for your time. I hope that you're all concerned and as concerned as I am, and I don't want to see the streets dug up, and I don't want to see the high amount of energy that is possibly going to radiate out of there to be a detriment and a danger to our families.
Thank you.
That walk to the beach every day. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this council unanimously has worked hard to protect this city from that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate what you said. Karen Riskin.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Karen.
I'm here on behalf of the Long Beach residents. I support the council making laws or ordinances that would make it difficult for the wind to consider our city. We need to make sure that they stay out. And look forward to seeing some progress on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Martinson.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Kelly Martinson, 311 East Penn Street, Long Beach. First, I want to thank you guys. Those grants are amazing, so thank you. I know it's hard work writing grants, and to get that many and to help the city like that, that's amazing. I wanted to thank you guys. I meant to come here a few weeks ago for the rescue board that was given to the fire department living on Monroe, having actually been involved with Sam in a rescue at one point where we used my board. Hearing that you guys gave that board was just amazing.
They just used a jet ski on Saturday, too.
Amazing.
To rescue somebody.
Yeah, it's a long time coming, so
yeah.
great
Good thing
work.
Good thing we, yeah, it's really good to have.
And then, as if the two people before kind of teed up for me, I want to offer a solution so that you guys don't have to keep hearing about the wind turbines, the wind turbines, the wind turbines. And it's a really easy solution, and maybe at the same time I want to ask you if there's any reason why you wouldn't do this. And doing this is, would you just enact a law, and you can call it the Protect Our Coast, Protect Our Beachfront Law, that just states, and I don't have legal verbiage, you'd have to look to Roy for that, but that just
We have a
literally
corporation
states,
counsel, actually.
or counsel, or whoever's the lawyer.
Just put them right on the spot.
All right, you
Throw
could
'em
do it
under the
right
bus.
now. That just states that for no reason will this coast be alienated, that forever this beach will be considered parkland. And the use of this beach is parkland only, never to be alienated. So it's really just a question Is there any reason why we wouldn't do that quick? And then you guys would never have to hear all of us coming up again and again and again. I mean, I just don't see a reason why not to do it, but
The only thing I could think of is that maybe it had to be alienated for something totally different that the city needed. I don't know.
Wait, I didn't hear what you said, Mr.
Like a
Gray.
gas line or something. I don't know.
I think
I'm-
gas lines go to them now, right?
I'm saying like, one of the answers is that
And five.
it's the federal leases that put these windmills out there, and we know where that came from. So we do what we can for our city.
So we can't specifically create a law that would
I'm not
say
saying
it's
we,
pro-
I'm not saying we
I'm
can't.
Yeah, just asking.
So the way the Article 7 process, which is being replaced, but the way the Article 7 process currently works is it basically overrides any local laws or ordinances. It voids them. Now, I don't know what they're going to do under this new system because they're rejigging it to kind of speed up the Article 7 process.
If I'm not mistaken, though, they didn't complete the Article 7 process.
No, they haven't.
Right, so,
Rapid Act now.
Yeah, now it's,
Well-
it's going under the Rapid
right,
Act.
but it hasn't gone under the Rapid Act yet.
No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know
Right,
what
'cause
the
that hasn't- the
transition
Rapid Act
from
hasn't-
Article 7 to Rapid is, but Article 7 basically nullified all local ordinances and laws that could
It
impede
did?
a
It
project.
nullified? I thought it just asked
It
for like certain
overrides
things
them.
to be waived. It overrid
It
them?
overrides them.
Okay. I don't
That's
know.
what,
Is
that was
the
one of the
truth?
things that sucked the
Is that
most
correct?
about that process.
Yeah, there was a lot of things.
It takes the control out of the local government's hands.
Okay, so there's no way to do that.
You
And
can
then-
do it, but it would be symbolic, quite
Well,
frankly.
Maybe that would be important. You actually just gave me, I mean, maybe that's the reason we do it, because let's hope that all of you guys are here for the next 10, 20, 30 years. But if you're not.
I hope not.
God, no.
So far tonight, we got cheaper burgers, I heard. It's working for me. No, but seriously, maybe you
Pilates?
just said it. If for no other reason, maybe it just says, like, we're unified and symbolic. Like, I think you've just given a better reason to do it, because who knows who's going to be in your place in a year, 5 years, 10 years. And
Well, that's another thing that we can't hold another council responsible to what we pass.
Well, a law is a law, no? I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
They can change it. They
They
could undo
could,
it.
they could, but why don't we just put it in there, nice and symbolic? I don't think it hurts anybody.
Doesn't hurt anybody.
So
I
let's
think
do
what
it.
you're asking is if we can do it, and
Yeah.
the answer is, I believe, and probably Stephen a better answer, that we could. The bigger factor is New York State overrides it, right? But we could do it.
I believe we have
I
that
think we
law
could do
right
it to
now.
to set a great example for other municipalities.
Aren't we considered parkland right now?
Yeah, so we're already
So-
parkland, and you can't alienate parkland unless there's a home rule message,
Right.
so.
Correct. So we already have that law.
So that law went back when you guys wrote the other letter. So now it's considered parkland, and so
It's
it
always
has a
been
no
considered
alienation.
parkland,
So
correct.
the law's already there. All right, that's interesting.
So we would have to alienate
It'd be a
it.
little redundant.
No,
It's to alienate, it's a two-step process. So first, Albany, the Assembly and the Senate would have to pass a home rule, giving then the city council the authority to alienate, and then the city council, if it chose to, then could alienate. So it's a two-step process.
So right now, it's unalienable. You
Right.
can't
Correct.
alienate it. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
I think it would be symbolic. The question is whether it should be done.
Well, it sounds like you guys are saying it doesn't need to be done.
I don't know.
I don't know. All right, I'll look
Thank
into
you.
it further.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Christina Kramer.
Hi, Christina Kramer. So I just want to alert the council, in case you're unaware, that there have been 4 added wind turbine projects added to the leases. Orsted is going to be called Long Island Wind, Community Offshore Wind, Vineyard Excelsior, which is going to be at Jones Beach, Field 1, 118 turbines, and Attentive Wind have all been added to the slate. I don't know what kind of law we need to make, but we need to start getting on board with fighting the turbines at large. I don't know if you can make a law against, saying that it can only be beach park land, but perhaps you can make a resolution, ordinances, laws that say you can't bring high voltage cables through the community, make it more specific to destroy the infrastructure. I don't really know, but the more important issue here is the Rapid Act. We have the Article 7. Empire 2 did not make it through out of the process, but Empire 1 is currently out of the process and looking to install their turbines 14 miles from our shore with no good neighbor agreement, as you know, where they gave Nantucket a good neighbor agreement and millions of dollars. We didn't even get a courtesy phone call. So
I'm certainly not happy
that's
about
a problem.
it. You know that.
Yeah, I know you know. I'm mostly speaking to the public here.
And preaching to the choir for the most part, but
yes.
not everyone.
So the Rapid Act is going to speed up that process, and it takes local control away. Municipalities will have no input, residents will have no input, and once that gets implemented, it's not just about offshore wind, it's going to leak into other areas of governing, whether it's housing or I don't know what other things they can get their dirty hands into, but the Rapid Act is overreaching on multiple facets, not just offshore wind. I also wanted to thank you for the way you handled, specifically you, Brendan, the Harvest Fest. National Grid Ventures is a sneaky snake oil salesman. They are here to check their boxes. And as a matter of fact, Island Park kids were sent home with another flyer from National Grid Ventures with sponsoring pumpkins. So we should all be aware of their playbook. They come here, they say they're having community engagement. This is not community engagement about their sneaky projects. It's just their box checking. And we need to be savvy to it and get in the way of it in any way that we can. So hopefully we are not going to be accepting sponsorships. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the civic associations. You know I run Protect Our Coast, but I also belong here for decades in the East End, civic associations. We have no contact with them. There's no emails, there's no correspondence, there's no group posts. I would like somebody to reach out to me on how to either overtake that association or create my own, because right now the East End, which would largely be affected by all of these projects, has no voice at all. They have no way we have no way to raise awareness. Ron Walsh was running around saying it's a done deal. I was being called crazy. So there has to be a way for us to reach our local residents in that area
Right,
that would
yeah.
be impacted.
I thought you were going to call me last Friday.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
Okay, but no problem. So
Yeah.
I spoke with Dan about this civic, and we could talk about it afterwards, if that works for you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time. I
All right,
appreciate
thank
all of
you.
you. Bye.
Christina, there was a short-lived East End Civic Association.
It's there. Nobody does anything.
Mr. Pinto was the president.
I
He's
reached
sitting
out to him.
Oh, okay.
If he's there, he said he's no longer affiliated. I can't
Oh,
get
okay.
anybody to speak with me. I've been trying to get in a presentation for years. I get ignored. No emails, no correspondence, nothing in the mail. It's non-existent. So we need to make it
So
exist.
it sounds like there's a power vacuum.
You should talk to some of the other civics as well, Christina. Talk to some of the other civics.
Well,
They're
the
really,
West End shut me out because Walsh said it was a done deal. But
Civics are typically grassroots organizations that are set up by the community members themselves. They're really not tied to the city at all, but it's something that can be set up just
okay,
by
well,
a
I'd like
similar
to
way
learn
to the
about
way you
it
set up
because I feel like we
Parkland.
don't have a voice over on the East End.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Wanda Brooks? Hi.
Good evening. My question is, what is the cost to the City of Long Beach for speed bumps?
I don't know exactly. Russ, I don't know if you would have that. I doubt it handy, but I could get that to you, Wanda. I would say that there's usually a pretty stringent procedure and qualification in order to get a speed bump put on your block. It's not as simple as just saying we want one.
I remember in a meeting last year, you guys, where Ron Walsh said they had put down the sensor that monitors how many cars go down the street on a given day
And
or
the speed.
hour. And
Okay, so what if all of that was done?
If that was-
And the street qualifies?
I don't know the
What's
cost,
the
but
next-
you're
what's
saying
the
why
next
isn't it being
step?
done? Right, yeah. Well, what street?
Then it should, I mean, if
East
you have.
Hudson Street.
East Hudson?
Yeah.
And from where to where?
19 East Hudson. That's the beginning of the block.
I'll look into it. I'm not aware of that yet, but I could talk with the police department and DPW and see what it takes to get one
You also have
put
to
in.
do a
But as
petition
long
and
as it
get-
meets the
That would be a petition that gets, I
Oh,
forgot,
that's
it's
done.
80% of the people.
So what's
on
the next step after the petition and you qualify for the speed bump?
It should be able to just be put in. We talked to DPW about how to repair the road and put that in. Yeah,
And who does that? City
it
council?
would be DPW. Rich, you want to?
The commissioner's
Second.
going to speak for a second.
Hi.
So your block did pass,
Mhm.
so it has to be planned and budgeted for, and then we can put the speed bumps in.
Okay,
It
so
does take a
y'all
little
have
while.
to budget for that?
We have
Or-
to look at the budget and what to plan and then put them in.
So we don't have any idea how much, a ballpark figure of how much it costs?
Off the top of my head, I have no
No.
idea.
Yeah, I don't either, but I can look into it and I'll see if we should be able to find a budget for a speed bump or a couple,
Okay.
depending on how many.
Thank you, we would appreciate that.
All right.
And the next question is, we as zoning board commissioners have to take courses each year to qualify for our positions, but I'm noticing now that the courses are costing us, they're not free anymore. So how would we go about getting reimbursed for these courses?
Work with, I said Wanda almost, work with Robin to get the receipts and everything for everything. We should be able to cover that. It's a requirement, so we'll have to find the money to make sure we make you guys whole. Shouldn't be on you when you're a volunteer already.
Okay.
It should be doable.
All right, that sounds fair.
Hey, it does sound fair.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Wanda, we could talk about that too. That's
Crystal Lake?
We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Mine too.
Crystal Lake, good evening again. Regarding the wind projects concerning Long Beach, they had the audacity to think that the subterranean cables should be put in close proximity to the pipeline.
I wrote a letter to Governor Hochul about that.
One DMM, and it's asinine.
I didn't hear back from her. I'm still waiting
From
to hear. I check the
ocean
mailbox every
side
day.
to the bay, and right off a marginal road. It's right there. Within an EJ community as well. Right now, we still have a little power, but we'll see in the coming, based on whatever protections may be increased or decreased over, the course of time, based on the 15 or so federal agencies as well as their subsets. Because what a lot of people do not understand when you state or speak about Presidential Executive Order 12898, environmental justice, federal actions that not only pertain to community of color, but to low to moderate income households as well. So now as we are speaking, if people can visualize it's a trickle-up effect now due to the cost of living and the pen. The pen is mighty. And it rules. Most of the time, we expect, well, feel entitled, arrogant, whatever the case may be. Too much becomes too much. And then we're right back where we started from. You know, I hear people say many things, and they have a right to. They have a right to their opinion. You know, I hear about rent issues. I can tell you for a fact, when tourists stopped coming to the city of Long Beach, that was the downturn. The North Park residents did not create, the conditions. They were there. They was due to neglect. Post-war, the tenancies, the brownstones. Title I. Now you have land tracts, parcels of land that turned into superblocks, which destroyed many people. But I do have to say this. I'm just speaking off the top of my head. I truly admire Jane, I believe her name is Jane Jacobs, who stood up against the United States and Robert Moses, because they believed their community wasn't blighted, because blight is in the eye of the beholder. And they won. And I must also say that it was people of all different nationality, creeds, that might not have even liked each other at one point in time, but they stood on one accord to protect their homes. So just having to say that, because due to the high rates of vacancies, what people have said, the welfare recipients, unfortunately, the mentally ill, that's what sustained Long Beach during those down economic times. And you'll hear the other versions, and I'm telling you my version and my truth. So we should all start coming together collectively.
Coalesce.
Collectively,
Yes.
across the board, and support each other. And we don't have to agree, but we should have at least some common goals for all of us to survive as well as thrive. Thank you for your time,
Great,
gentlemen.
thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Crystal. Russell Blank?
Thank you, gentlemen. Just want to give you a quick history of something that I've had go with the building department for a while now. My sister owns a house. She works. I'm retired, so I'm kind of speaking for her. When she took the house from my deceased sister in 2014, she did not know that you're not allowed to paint the curb aprons, and she got fined for that. Her fault. She didn't know. No one in the neighborhood kind of told her you should not do that. She spoke to the building department about 6 months ago in April, brought that subject up. She came home and told me I felt that he brushed me off about that. I believe it was the director of the building department. I spoke to him in May, and he kind of deflected and told me that he had busted one illegal apartment on my block and was investigating 2 others. I said to him, fine. I understand this is on the bottom of your totem pole. You're a busy man, but hopefully we can take care of this, because there are 17 driveways on my side of the street where you park on Wisconsin between Beach and Park. Half of them are painted, and some of them have been there for many, many years. I've been here for almost 10 years now. So I went and spoke to him again in June, kind of gave me the same company line about what he had on his agenda, didn't really give me a timeline or anything like that. I said, fine. I'll come back in July. That's the last time I spoke to him about it. Asked him, once again, can you give me a timeline? What's going on with this? He said to me, he didn't like the fact that I said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but that is basically what that's about. He told me, you will know when they do it when they come out with their jet hoses and blast the paint off the curb aprons. That's 3 months ago. This has been 6 months. I did not want to get into an argument with him. Wasn't worth it, so I figured, let me give him some time. I gave him 6 months. That's why I'm here about it now.
Okay.
You know, because it's just not fair.
Right.
So that's basically, I just want to thank you and for the time, and maybe you can pull some strings and ask him, and see what we can do about that.
Certainly inquire about it.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that very much, more than you realize. Thank you.
Kathleen O'Leary?
Kathleen O'Leary, Long Beach. I wanted to bring up the last city council meeting where we had to evacuate. That was, you know, an innocent mistake. Everybody evacuated very orderly and nobody panicked. However, I've always had anxiety kind of about the fact that, you know, the whole city council is here, the city manager is here, all the commissioners are here, and some nut could just walk through the lobby and come here.
Chris and I never go out together.
What's that?
Chris and I can't be in the same room together usually.
Okay. Well, you know, I just wonder if we have someone at the desk during the day checking in people, why don't we have someone, like frankly, with a gun in the lobby, overseeing who's coming up here and keeping track? And also, at certain times, there are armed police in the city council meetings, but not regularly. It's
No,
usually
always.
when there's
Always.
an issue. Well, I know. Yeah,
No,
I know.
always.
Okay, well, I know. I'm not sure if you come.
The utmost faith in him.
Yeah, but you know, I just feel like we're not being realistic about what's really happening in the country around us, and it's like an open, soft target, really soft. The fact that we don't have anyone in the lobby even eyeballing who's coming in. Okay? What's that? Thank you.
I thought about it.
You have, yeah. I've been thinking about it a long time. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. That's it. We're out of contestants. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and arrive home safely. You don't have to go straight home, but arrive home safely. You didn't get that? Vice President, President can't be in the same room at the same time? He didn't look like he got it.